Well, we have to start at some time, folks. So here we are, though. Who wants to go first?
Ladies first.
Okay.
Passing the book. Go, Sabrina.
All righty. Well, then what I'll do is, if you don't mind, if you would, okay. Well, first of all, my name is Sabrina Sterling, and I am here with Jonathan, Christen, and Ben, and we are going to discuss Enneagrams and learning styles and exploring the centers of the 9 types in student success. And this, today we're going to focus on the heart center. Okay. Get you to change to the next one if you don't mind. Okay, now the heart center consists of the Enneagram types 2, 3, and 4, also known as the helper, the achiever, and the individualist. Now, one of the core emotions that they identify with or express is sadness, which can be hidden but underlying, avoided completely or denied, or overexpressed.
I think one thing to say is also this is called, it's called the heart center, but it's also called the image center, because there's a lot of focus on the image that a person is trying to present, which has to do with the type of emotions that they're looking for. So the 2 is looking for the positive feedback, and so they'll present a positive image. The 4 is looking for authentic feedback. They want and expressing their authentic emotions, so they'll present what they always believe to be an authentic image or an original image. And the 3 is looking for like also positive feedback, but feedback for being successful and efficient. So they'll present a successful and efficient image or a popular image. So this can affect things like how they dress and things like that.
Well, like prestige.
Yes. And also, I was going to say something and it's lost me now. Yeah. As sadness and shame, but it's also love, positive. So the heart center is the love and shame thing dichotomy. The head center is the hope and fear dichotomy, and the gut center is the anger and serenity dichotomy. So a lot of their psychology is built around managing those 2 things. So the 2s feel like they have an abundance of love and an abundance of self-love, and they have more than enough love to give to everyone and share everyone. They can overestimate just how much they're capable of that. Whereas the 4 can feel like they have a scarcity of love and a scarcity of self-love. So they're trying to present themselves as original and unique in order to receive love for that, because they think it's almost like they see the world as an emotional jungle. There's a competitive side to the 4, and there's also the competing for love, and they're all kind of competing for love in their own way, 2, 3, and 4, but they're trying to get it in different ways. So the 3 is trying to get it by the 3 is the archetype of the person who is praised by their parents for doing well at school or doing well at sports or just being successful, whatever. And they really want that feedback, and if they can't get it from their parents, they get it from someone else. But that's what they're trying for. And since the 3 is the core of the heart type, of the heart center, sorry, the 2 and the 4 also have elements of that as well. Right.
Okay.
So
the first one, number 2, is the helper. Now, Christen, actually, I believe you said you wanted to share a couple of anecdotes about helper students that you've had, right? Okay.
So the helper, that they're cooperative, they work well with peers. I think especially in groups where they get to maybe have that opportunity to help people out and show that caring side and that knowledge and share it. Is that right, Jonathan?
yes.
Okay. And since I've done one-on-one tutoring, when we were reviewing the slide, I recalled a student who we were doing one-on-one lessons. And in the session prior to her, I had 2 students who were approximately the same ability doing a similar project. So I had them kind of present each other's projects to each other and give each other feedback. And she then in her session kind of saw them wrapping up with the overlapping time. And she's like, oh, could I get an overlap? And she was a grade above, but I just saw that kind of like look in her eyes, like she was missing out on the opportunity to kind of like share and give feedback and participate in a group thing. So I made it an effort with her parents to get her to have an overlap with a similar student afterwards. But I just distinctly remember that look in her eye, like she was, and I can't remember her exact phrasing, but like she was missing out on getting a group work in and to present her work and to give feedback to a peer.
That might be a social sex as well, because they can also want that sort of thing. Or A type role, I suppose, to ourselves as, but yeah.
It could be what it was about it was also just some of the other things, like the projects that she chose was very much oriented around kind of people and humanities and some of the tragedies that had happened in the world and how do we avoid it and do better. So as a combination, I could see that there could be some other types, but reading this and reflecting on that experience with her and a few other things from her sessions reminded me of wanting to work in a group and wanting to kind of participate and share.
You know, several years ago, I had a student who I am sure, as I was, going through the material, was a 2. We would be in the middle of a test or an activity, and if she saw somebody dropped a pencil, she would be up. I don't know if she had eyes in the back of her head, but she would be up, ready to go give them the pencil. If somebody was sad, she'd go bring them a tissue. And I always worried about her because she seemed to be so focused on taking care of everyone. She was very motherly. And I thought, this can interfere with your ability to get your education if you're spending so much time worrying about everybody else. And she told me she wanted to be a nurse when she grew up, and that's what she likes to do. And I just, as a teacher, it was the first time I had one that was a student that was such that extreme. I really didn't know what to do because I didn't want to destroy her self-esteem by telling her, you need to work, take care of yourself first, when I know she got so much out of that. One of the things that we have up here that we want to be able to share with viewers is the glows of each of the types as well as the grows, so that you can look at the things that are positive about those students, the cooperativeness, the conscientiousness, they look and seek to do well by others, but they definitely have some areas that they need to work on. And one of them is that they can be too extrinsically motivated, and they need to at some point learn how to work independently. And what are some of the things that you've been able to do with students to move them to that direction?
To working independently?
Mm-hmm.
It's been a little bit different for everybody. A lot of encouragement, sometimes to telling them there's not like a right or wrong when they're first trying to come up with their own like independent project. To just encourage them to explore their interest and the most comfortable way then for them to present their work. If they want to do a paper or if they want to do a presentation. So to start with something that they're fairly confident in and to give praise, and then to encourage them from there to expand out into something that's a little bit more of a stretch comfort-wise.
So just to be clear, the INTJ type 5 was worried that the student was not taking care of themselves enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was worried because I'm looking at it's like, well, if we're supposed to be working on our work and you're focused on everybody else, you're not going to get your work done, which in my mind as a teacher was, well, this is why you're here. And like I said, I thought it was very sweet that she wanted to help, but the pragmatic side of me is that we're here to get our education so that ultimately you can one day maybe go to college and become a nurse if that's what you want to do. But we got to get you through here first. So yeah, I like I said, I was conflicted. I opted not to reprimand her for it, but it bothered me because I felt like it was something that needed to be addressed. And I just didn't, and I genuinely did not know how to address her doing something so sweet, you know, because like I said, that was the essence of who she was. You know, it was hard. I can still see her in my mind. And chances are, looking at the time this past year, but she might very well be a nurse, or at least coming out of college for being one right now, assuming that she put some of that focus back on her classwork.
So could that be combined with the kind of a growing opportunity to be more internally motivated for self, be combined with the conscientiousness and the wanting to look good and accomplish things that are set for them, to set them an individual learning goal that is very much intrinsically motivated and not oriented around the group or others as much?
Well, I will say all 2, 3, and 4, in a way, they're all externally motivated because they're all looking for that reciprocation and all, and the feedback of the image they're trying to present. So, for example, they like to receive a certain kind of feedback at least 3 times a day. So the 2 likes to be told they're being helpful, or they're being charitable, or they're kind, or whatever, at least 3 times a day. The 3 likes to be told they're efficient, successful, they're hardworking, they're doing well 3 times a day. And the 4, they're special, they're unique, they're different, they're authentic, they're expressing themselves 3 times a day. So even with the 4 that's like FI weeds, they'll still have that little bit there. The thing with the 2 is that even if they're an introvert, they're still looking to help others. Like an ISFJ2 will still be looking to help others. I wonder if it would help to develop highlight those skills you observed, offering suggestions to apply them inward. Well, actually, I'd say the 2 sees themselves as always having a full cup. The 2 is a positive upbeat type. The 2, as I said, feels like they have more than enough love to give to others, and that they exist to help others.
I'll just interject in that, because a lot of 2s are ESFJs, and a lot of that positivity is going to be coming from the ESFJ part. But in general, they're going to present that image of being positive. So I would say an ESFJ2 would be extra positive about people, but say the other Jungian type, other Jungian 2s, like say, you know what I mean? There might be a difference between the image they project and how they feel on the inside, in terms of like the energy they have for other people. Like I imagine an INFJ2.
Even then, an INFJ2 would be more that for an INFJ, more positive for an INFJ. Yeah, the 2s are usually the any feeling type, apart from the INFP and ISFP, because they're more the FI heavy. All the other feeler types are strong FE, preferred FE, so that's an important thing.
Just to be cheeky, I suggest that when we get towards the end of the 2s, we could sort of like ask Tamara here, seeing as we have. I'm super excited she's here, and you can sort of ask Tamara about her experience communicating with 2s.
Okay.
And I just to clarify too, what I meant by to build up the intrinsic motivation, I was thinking specifically about the way that they're graded. If they are, a grade, a 90% tells you, what percent of the problems you got right. A class ranking tells you how you compare to your peers, or going back to sight words in school, how many words are you expected to know at age 5, at age 6? And those are very different than competing with yourself to say, okay, this week 20 words, let's work on these 10 and see how many we can add to your list. So where they are competing, so that they're not always just looking to peers. Well, my peers can read this many words, or my peers can do this many problems in this amount of time. It's more internal competing with themselves. Well, last week I did X number of problems in 2 minutes. This week can I do more math problems in 2 minutes? What
I might suggest there, Christen, is if you want the 2 to learn, like words within their focus of attention. So I imagine words that describe subtle differences between emotions, that would be in the wheelhouse of the two, because that's their focus of attention.
Yes, yes. I was wondering, maybe from Sabrina and Tammy, if they, from a grading scale, think that that would help the two become a little bit more internally focused and help a little bit. I mean, I think they're just naturally going to be wired to the group and social expectations, but to help some of that internal on their own.
No, I think you could probably design a good rubric or feedback tool that they could probably refer to that has that criteria on it, and maybe set goals. I know that it often works quite well with older students in general. I can definitely see maybe paring that down to a certain extent, and then for those that are very concrete, they could actually see it and check it. And probably I could also maybe reflecting in a personal journal, depending again on how old they are, how they feel about it, in addition to having something that they could check off. Right. But I definitely would love to hear what Tamara has to say.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'm a little late to the show. I'm sorry. So I think if I'm not mistaken, you're one of you is in a teaching position and you're looking for ideas as to how to communicate with a Twostyle learner. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So what comes to me in the way that I would probably approach that, and I have had that opportunity not as a regular teacher, but coming in to do workshops and that type of thing in schools. I feel like where I would approach that right now is I would probably speak to the emotions of the two in outlining what activities are going to be happening. So I'd say, so it probably would feel really good to want to help out all your friends and make sure that everybody's got their stuff done. And maybe before you come to school, you're helping your parents, or you're helping your siblings, or you're helping the person on the bus. And it just feels so powerful to be able to, help everybody all the time. But what would it feel like to allow yourself to give yourself all of that help? Mm-hmm. And to reach to do all of those things that you're doing for other people, and know that you are also actually extending that help by learning how to do this and to fight those urges of doing everything for everybody else all the time when you're young. And if I was a teacher and I was given that opportunity right now, I think I would really try to illustrate the psyche and the range of emotions, because as we walk in the world, and as I work with so many people as adults and have had the privilege of working with thousands of individuals in a private container, relative to where they are in terms of their joy and disharmony in life, what I see is that there's been no preparation almost, fully in those younger years to understand self and understand that canvas for each individual. And how that looks and what health looks like for one to the other, and really try to illustrate it's actually really normal to pattern. It's really normal to look at what other people are doing and want to do that too. But what's really fun and magical is to also experience who you are. So I would try and encourage that magic that comes out in the 4, that the 2 has that creative capacity and can show others through their own self-expression and learn a little bit of that and start to get comfortable in that at a young age. So because I feel like being a 4 and having that 2 element, which I spent most of my life in overgiving and overdoing and over all that, I really wish I had have had some kind of exampling that way. So I could only imagine being a 2 being shown that their superpower in giving is also relevant, and being self-expressive and turning that giving and creativity inward. And children are like sponges. So I just feel like if I was given the opportunity to be a teacher, my emphasis would obviously as a 4, and 4s go into 1 as well. So I understand the structure and the academia and that desire to have that all tied in together beautifully. but I'd also love to see the opportunity to really allow kids to know that as big as their emotions feel and as pressureful as their emotions feel, that that's all very real and that doesn't go away as they grow up. So let's look at that, because everything else is going to probably fall into alignment at a much deeper capacity. And in the long run, I feel like that's, I mean, I'm going on a tangent, but it's powerful to me. I see the disruption and like pain in my own children and how much I struggle in their teenage years, and how rooted in that like unhealthy too element in myself I was, you know, and the, I don't know, the freneticness of the one also while I was raising them. And I look now and I think, oh gosh, you know, what would I do if I could go back to the beginning? And I wish that all children were empowered to see how normal and beautiful each of them are, and how they, if they could have a teacher that knew something like the Enneagram, how incredible, because now you can really see where they're going to struggle in their life, the general things, those overtones. So I'd love to have the opportunity to speak to them directly and kind of be that fairy godmother that's in their little world when they're really little, and say, hey, you know what, you're probably going to keep trying to please everybody and you're going to probably keep trying to help your friends first. But it'd be so huge if you could do it for you and show your friends too, or something.
I have a question for Jonathan. Is it common for people to perceive the two, if they don't understand their motivation, as being manipulative?
Yes, and the two themselves can be manipulative. One thing that Catherine likes to emphasize, that manipulation is Catherine Fowler, whose work we're referencing a bit. The word manipulation has got bad connotations in English, but it's actually quite a normal, even positive word in other languages. Basically, the two manipulates people, but usually they'll see it as for the other person's own good. Now, if they're less healthy, it's much more for themselves. But for the most, even when they're less healthy, they do always think, well, they always like to think that they're doing it for other people. So yeah, and certainly some types will be much more annoyed by the two's tendencies than others. But the twos almost always think they have the best intentions in the world and that they're sincerely trying to help. The two's very responsive to to other people and to helping people and to people-focused projects. Twos, they're not necessarily looking to the group. That could be a bit to do with instincts as well, like a social last two or sexual two, that way more like their intimate friends and stuff. But even if they're not looking to the group, they will want to help people. Always, even the youngest twos will want to be helpful and they'll want to be loved. Has anyone seen The Office? The Office, you have? Okay. Michael Scott is absolutely a self-pres too. He's all about being loved and being wanting everyone to like him, and sometimes being a bit inappropriate and pushing things a bit too far. But everything he's doing is to help people. He's a really, really good salesman because he's really, really good at understanding people and figuring out how to sell things to them. So most twos will be driven towards anything. Most twos will be drawn towards anything that has to do with people in some way. And even if they're really, really smart, they won't like to be left alone with something. They want to have their friends nearby or someone nearby to help. And even the most introverted too will want that as well. They want to have a company. If they have a choice between being successful and being with their friends, they'll probably choose their friends. If they're a social two, they'll want both. They'll have the more ambitious side, but even a social two will still have a desire for some kind of company and a desire to see themselves as ultimately working for others, even as they're climbing the ladder. So yeah.
That makes me wonder where you would find them in leadership positions then, because that sounds like there would be, there could be a lot of conflict.
Oh yeah, they definitely would be. There are a lot of social twos. Social twos will automatically seek out leadership positions. That's one of the main things. They will usually be in. You might find them in the activist groups. You might find them in politics or business, whatever kind of ladder.
Okay.
Especially serving in a kind of advisory role, like a really powerful advisor. Or as I said, I just used the example of Michael Scott. He's obviously the manager of the office.
Okay.
I suggest, Jonathan, that every now and then you throw in a bit of MBTI terms, like, for example, especially if they're an ENFJ too, because they're an initiator, they're an in-charge type anyway, a natural leadership type. And now I'd imagine, this is something that I can mention. So ESFJ, they've got this, they can shift to acting like their superego type, ENTJ. And I was going through Victor's profile, and I was thinking about the kind of things that ESFJs get involved in, where if they're involved in sort of social events and charity events and things, and sort of social causes on a logistical, practical level of sort of doing things for the community, they sort of naturally, they sort of shift to that, because the ENTJs are very good at coordinating. But for them, it's long-term strategic objective projects, and that ESFJ can sort of shift to a smaller scale version of to ENTJ, where they're coordinating these events. And I think their leadership style a little bit is sort of determined by that switch to ENTJ, but it's going to be all skilled and FE and collaborative overall.
Cheers. I would say that 2 is the type that most clearly correlates to a particular function, and that is FE. All 2s would be good at FE. Someone asked why Michael Scott is a self-pres. It's because self-pres 2 is a bit more infantile and a bit more. Even though self-pres 2 is a self-pres type, it's probably one of the most FE heavy giver self-pres types. It's really much a type that wants to give love to be given back. So taking care of others in order to be taken care of. The kind of juvenile, infantile, childish. Self-pres 2 has got almost an eternal child sort of vibe to it. To them, whereas the social 2 and the sexual 2 are a bit more adult. Have you ever seen? Have you seen The Office? Have you seen Parks and Rec?
Parks and Rec.
No, Parks and Rec. No.
That sounds but I've not watched. I've seen several of The Office. I'm familiar with Parks and Rec, but don't watch Parks and Rec.
I'm pretty sure they may be the same team, and someone in the writing team must be a 2 because the main character in Parks and Rec is also a 2. Is a social 2, who's more an ESFJ social 2, who's like a Hillary Clinton if she was militantly helpful. A politician who wants to rise. She really wants to be politically successful, and she's always getting involved in activism and so on. But also always very warm and kind, and presenting is very generous. The sexual 2 is no. Del Boy is not a 2 and 3. Del Boy is 7.
Hey, I've watched a hell of a lot more Only Fools and Horses than you, Jonathan.
Yeah, but he's a 7.
I know a lot of storylines where he has decided to put other people first, such as when he was offered the chance to go to Australia to become a millionaire, but he decided to stay back home and look after his grandfather and his brother. There's always key points where if there's a choice between success and family, he will put family first. It's just the context of his upbringing where to help his mother, like he was the only one bringing in an income when he was like 14, 15, 16 years old. And he does so much for other people, but it's within the context of a role, which is the role of the con man. And then they're like just selling like a load of rubbish. And David Jason said about the character, if he sold good stuff, he'd be Alan Sugar by now. And one of the things, he cares a lot about people, Del Boy, and you contrast him with Boise, who's ESTP as heck, But
I think we're getting off. I think we're getting off topic here.
Right, okay, we can do this in the future.
Especially since most.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
He has got to help.
I was actually spacing out for a moment, and I heard Jonathan say we're off topic, and I'm like, oh yes.
Right. I'm just saying, it's like you're talking about the most popular character in British comedy history.
Yes,
played by a very successful actor.
Yes, but only 2 people here are British, so no one else knows what the heck you're talking about.
Well, didn't the original Office start in the UK?
No, we're talking about the flipping Office. We're talking about Only Fools and Horses.
Yeah, anyway. Also,
but you're right. Yes, The Office did start in Britain.
That's what. Yeah, okay.
I was also going to say an evil type 2 ENFJ would be the character the cat from Star Trek. If anyone's seen that, Deep Space Nine, who's kind of like a very nice Nazi who really convinced that he's, as far as fascist dictators go, he was a pretty nice guy, and everyone should be appreciating that he could have been much worse. And he wants everyone to like him. He's very charming and pleasant.
Now, are you using the word fascist accurately? Are you talking about a trade unionist?
I'm not even going to get into that discussion, Ben.
Well, fascio means bundle.
Fascio means union. Yes,
and
union.
Fascism was created by a socialist, and all of the fascist intellectuals were former socialists. And the reason the fascism was founded in Italy was because the socialists in Italy wanted to remain international rather than national. Right. Anyway, back on track.
That's not even true, but anyway.
That is true. Documentaries on it.
Okay.
Anyway, moving on.
Mussolini's intellectual.
Moving on.
Moving on. We'll go to the 3.
Yes, let's go to the 3.
The 3.
Does anyone get any questions about the 2 before we move on?
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have any questions about the 2 before we move on?
In fact, wait, Christen, have you got a question for Tamara about the 2? Because she's a.
Well, yeah, I had an idea actually on the glowing with their kind of natural tendency to want to work within a group and lead. I saw something in Catherine Favre's video that they are remarkably strong, even though they do like working with others and they can seem very cooperative. So I would see an opportunity in these students to promote those leadership and group skills and to praise them on their ability to work with others, to make sure that those skills kind of are grown for good in their life and maybe then away from any possible of the negative manipulation. But the way that they are great leaders, they do get others involved and they do get people coming together to work on something.
Yeah, it is important to make sure they take care of themselves and don't overextend themselves. It's also important to make sure you don't confuse them with a different type. For instance, the 9s can seem like 2s and that they're being helpful, but 9s are doing it to keep things calm and peaceful. Or the 6 is doing it to avoid getting in trouble and to give a good image to feel safe, so people see themselves helpful. And also, any type can be helpful. They're helpful in their own way. The 2, though, is militantly helpful. The 2 is going out their way to be helpful. The 2 is uncomfortable if they're not helping people.
I like that phrase, militantly helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's in that Enneagram Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, what can I do for you? Like that for we affirm you, all that kind of stuff. So, Christen, in which ways are 2s strong?
That's actually a question I have. Because
as sitting here thinking, do you? Because I have a question for Jonathan, kind of along that same line. Does it manifest itself differently between the genders? Because I can see women or girls being more encouraged to be 2, like.
Okay, so I've got a character for you. The popular show at the moment, The Expanse. There's a character out there called Amos Burton. He grew up in a very violent upbringing, and but he says this: there are 3 kinds of people in this world: bad ones, those you follow, and those you protect. And there's a lot of instances where he's protecting other people, and I think he's an ESFJ male. I've got another one. I've got a one for you who is a banker ESFJ male, and that's Hilo in Carl Agathon in Battlestar Galactica. the remake Mark II, and I personally believe that Adama in Edward James Olmos's Adama in Battlestar Galactica Mark II is an ESFJ male, and I believe that because of gender role socialization and because they're so attentive to ESFJ about how to express things, that they're going to be, the ESFJ male is going to be expressing emotion in a culturally appropriate way for males.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Didn't you say once that you thought Brezhnev was an ENFJ? We know Brezhnev.
Yeah, I believe Brezhnev, ESFJ.
Yeah,
like when he kissed the Brezhnev, and when I saw him, when he was like towards the end, and he gave a Christmas message to children, and like he was not there in the head. Like this is like Christmas message, like 1979 or something, and like there was so much love in his eyes and voice. For the children in his sort of like Christmas message, and he was there, like I said, but you could almost say that like that was his top function, and he still had like his faculties there. But other times it's like he didn't know much what was going on in the studio, and the director was telling him what to do. It was quite so you can find it on YouTube. It's like 10-minute stuff, and you got behind the camera thing of Brezhnev sitting there doing his Christmas message and something slow in his speech. But you could see like that lead function, and I saw a bit of that in my grandmother as well when she was like in her late 80s, and she was had Alzheimer's, but the FE was still there, and she could understand. It was like she understood, say the sitcom Everybody Loves Raymond, because she related to all of the FE that was part of that sitcom.
The mother and Everyone Loves Raymond. Raymond's mother. She's
brilliant.
Well.
Brilliant performance by Doris Roberts.
Yeah, and you can see the militantly helpful side of Raymond's mother as well, like to the point where it kind of annoys Raymond's wife. I
accidentally stumbled onto something relevant.
Yeah, but yes, so yeah, definitely cultural expectations in regards to gender can be a factor. It's not so much that they're manifesting different ways, that they're raised differently, so they're expected to behave in a certain way. So it's certainly more culturally appropriate expected for women to act like twos than men. So boys who are twos, perhaps not so much today, but still in the past, would have a certain difficulty doing that. And the reverse situation would be with type 8 girls who are much more masculine.
Gotcha. Okay.
I was actually wondering about that line. If for male twos, if they're raised to be more masculine in a particular way, if their helper could come across as more of a protector provider.
I would also say about females, though, even within the United States, if you think of New York, I think New York is a more friendly place for, say, a female E8 than say somewhere further down south. But even then, there's gonna be certain roles and things.
Yeah. Oh, also Joe Biden, President Biden, he's a two as well.
Ah.
Yeah.
His verbiage, that's
But wait a minute. So you don't think Biden's an ESTP?
No.
Oh, Jeff does.
I don't think he has. No, why is an ESTP going around hugging and kissing everyone?
Yeah,
because he's an ESTP and he's like he's dirty Joe. That's why
he's a politician. I think politician is a nickname for ESTP at some point.
You should look at the kind of person he's being touchy and feely towards.
I can see the interpretation, but I don't buy it fully.
Yeah, I'm thinking more.
Yeah. All right, can we go to 3? I don't want to have to cut off.
Absolutely.
Part out.
Absolutely.
Right,
okay,
so
3. That's the
2.
Achiever. Yeah, that's the 2. Yeah, the 3 is the achiever. That is. Type 3 is the achiever, and I guess we probably go ahead on to the next one there. Okay, and the achiever, they're great at planning and executing projects. They're competitive, inspirational. They like receiving and probably giving praise. Some of their areas of growth: self-pacing, cooperative learning, and acknowledging mistakes. So, I will jump in and say that whenever I've looked at my tri-type, this was me as a child. Although I'm definitely a 5, I see so many of these characteristics in here when it comes to achievement and being very achievement oriented, which as a teacher, I enjoyed working with students who were excited and ready to jump into projects and ready to learn and didn't look back. But I look back at some of this and some of the behaviors I would worry about now as an adult looking back at it. It's like, yeah, we really need to do some more emphasis on working better with others. Now, what I find interesting, and this question is for Jonathan, how do they still look at this as a heart-centered? In my mind, I would almost think of that as a head-centered type person.
Well, the core centers of each tri-type are a bit paradoxical. So the 9, for example, is the center of the heart, of the gut center, which is about inner strength and anger division. 9 is arguably the strongest of all the types, but 9 presents very passive and nice. And 9 is strong in the way kind of like an elephant is strong, or a really powerful, docile animal. They can put up with a huge amount. That's the strength of the 9. Whereas the 6 is the center of the head center. The 6's problem is that they can overthink things and overthink to the point that they can't really make decisions on their own, and they're all going to others to help them think. So the 3, yes, it is the center of the heart center, but they're actually suppressing or repressing their emotions in order to get things done. So yes, the 3 tends to be, but 3 is always a thinking type in the Myers-Briggs, and usually an extrovert with thinking. If they're introverts with thinking, then likely to have 3 in the tri-type. But generally, the 3 is very much the sort of robot. There's a robotic kind of quality to it in terms of might not always be obvious, but a desire for being hardworking and efficient and getting things done, and being very results oriented and getting the feedback for doing a good job.
It might be better to call this center the image center.
Okay.
I was also thinking that the 5 and the 6, I see them as a little bit more, what'd you call it? Like methodical, and that the 3, their desire to be like valuable, efficient, successful is passion. There can be maybe an irrationality to how strong that desire is.
The 6 may or may not be like that. The 6 is a very complex type. 3, though, 3 always wants to look efficient, look successful. Tom Cruise is given as an example of a 3-wing 2. He's almost always, most teachers see him as a 3, and according to everyone who's ever worked with him, they always say on sets he's extremely professional, and he's always involved in pretty much every single aspect of production. So even if he's not in charge, even if he's not directing the film, he's with the director, talking about stuff. If he's not in the costume, he's in the costumes. He's knows the cinematography, knows every single aspect of the film, and he knows what he's good at, and knows how to make himself look good. And there is a certain artificiality to what Tom Cruise does, both in front of the camera and in public. And another thing with type 3s is that you'll notice in a way they can be very private with their. I don't know what a known is. I've actually seen them typed as a 9, but I'm not sure. The thing with 3s is that there is a certain privacy to them. They try to, more than any other type, the 3s try to micromanage their image and try to micromanage how you see them. They're trying to present themselves in a good way. So I mentioned Tom Cruise. A lot of early Tom Cruise films and a lot of Hollywood films are 3-ish in terms of the person who's like new to the business world, just fresh out of school, whatever, and is trying to make it in this particular law firm or this particular sports team or with this particular business or whatever. Yeah, there's like Wall Street or Devil's Advocate or The Firm or all these things where the question,
Okay.
or the film Whiplash. Whiplash is about a 3 as well. It's all about succeeding and the question of selling yourself.
What I'll say though is it was more sophisticated in the 1970s before Star Wars, when they had they had 3 stories, but it was the redemption plot where they realized that the person it's like there was focused so much on success, it was corrupting them. And then it was what they were losing in that quest to gain success. And then just before they realize and they give up the quest and they win by losing. And that story form, it was like Robert McKee calls that the redemption plot, where you give up the quest and you win by losing. He said that was a magnet for the Oscars. And he actually said that was also a little bit of maybe Tom Cruise's storyline, maybe in The Rain Man. Can't quite remember. Does the character like give up his like material quest and sort of grow as a person? I can't quite remember.
I haven't seen it, but I think that's kind of the idea. Yeah. Because
Robert McKee wrote in '97 in his book Story, there's been a lot of Oscars for films with a redemption plot, and it's almost like it's a critique of traditional values. It's a critique of these values of striving at all costs to achieve success. And then Robert McKee described another kind of plot, and I think he gave an example of a movie based on Richard Nixon, which was called The Punitive Plot, where you actually gain what you've succeeded, but it's like what you've turned yourself into in order to achieve that success. That corruption, like where you like maybe you have to be a completely ruthless person to achieve. And these are sort of like, and when you see these stories, these are a critique of, you could say, an overly materialistic, success-driven society. And so there were these films that came along in the 1970s. And there was even a film, a Nick Nolte film called North Dallas 40, about an aging American football player, and he's like, his body is being beaten up and he's a wide receiver. And the final scene is he's about to receive the ball, to catch the ball, and that will be the touchdown that wins the game. And the ball comes towards him, he just opens his arms and he lets the ball hit his chest and fall down. And from the context of the movie, that shows I've grown up, I've moved on. I don't need to win this silly game anymore. I don't need this success that has been beating up my body. So that was a theme, the sort of like the anti-3 story.
I will say America's generally considered a very 3-ish culture, especially historically.
Partly 3.
Partly 3.
If it was totally 3 in income tax, you know.
Would you say 8 would be the next one?
Not sure. I think I'd say it's quite complicated because I've seen like a lot of people saying that America's actually like 8 or 9 different cultures.
Yes. The thing is like temperament. It's like in certain areas you would say.
Right, that makes sense.
Who's like say, like I see the Woody Allen films. Like he would complain about New York values versus Californian values, where it's like California is a lot more, and Robert McKee would talk about these Hollywood scenes where it's like people are more phony, they're not as authentic, whereas in New York, authentic to a fault. INTJs might like being in New York. Tell it how it is. Don't talk to anyone.
Okay. So, Christen, have you worked with many children that you would say fall in this category?
I can think of some examples that seem like this, since I didn't know Enneagram at the time the story came from, but I'll share some. I had a handful of students, so I don't know if they were 3 themselves or perhaps had 3 influence from their parents, kind of overlaid as far as expectations. But with students that very much were kind of already high performers and came for me for tutoring to get better, to further exceed, to get into maybe an additional gifted program or skip a grade. They wanted very clear projects and objectives. And we did that a lot. I would also give open-ended projects though. And I did this a lot with research and writing. I'd ask them, you know, tell me 5 things you're interested in, and they'd tell me. And then we'd narrow it down, and I'd say, okay, off of either, you know, this topic or this topic, you're going to do a project. And they're like, what kind of project? And like, that depends on how this conversation goes. And they're like, what? It's like very bewildering. And I think overall students just aren't used to hearing that in school, but I'm thinking of some of the students that were, I especially had to walk them into some expectations, because some students, when I said, okay, you're going to create your own, you know, writing project just off of this topic, they would be more willing to run with it. But I'm thinking of the achiever when I'm thinking of some of my students that were quite bewildered and were like, but how long does it need to be? Where should I get my research from? And then I had to tap into, well, what have you learned in school about where you can research? Them really wanting more clear, I'm thinking of the students that wanted more clear guidelines from me. And it was quite a process over several lessons to get them to do the self-pacing, to set their, to kind of set themselves up with less of my guidance and less of my input.
So is it similar to the 2, but more concrete in terms of, I want step by step by step by step, not just simply validating my feelings, but give me direct instructions that will help me be successful.
And what's going to make me successful? What are you going to grade this on?
This is, the 3 is the archetype of this, not necessarily the student that always gets straight A's, but certainly that always achieves something. Like if they're good at sports, they want to be the best at sports. The 3 wants to be the best, the best at whatever it is they do.
Best at whatever they
and
do.
And they want to be told that they're the best, and that can be not just through words, but also through getting like a great grade or a trophy or a medal. All those things, and all push themselves. Whatever they do, they can be very, very hard working at it as well. Like, so if you think a lot of athletes are either 3s or 3 in the tri-type, being a professional athlete is long, long hours of hard work and training and repetitive tasks, same thing over and over again, and almost like shutting off your mind in a way, and having that sort of robotic-like quality can really benefit that. You also find them in business world, whether a big business or small business, maybe running their own business, or in all kinds of, you might find them in government, you find them in all kinds of environments that involve a lot of hard work and with reward. All 3s want a reward. The sexual 3 will focus more on helping their significant others become successful, or helping others. All of coaches might be sexual 3s actually, or social sexual perhaps, just helping others become more successful. Knowing how to look successful. A lot of social 3s are also involved in charity work because they know how to market, for example. So yeah, you can see all these. Let's focus on the image of success and how to be helpful, how to help others be successful.
Yeah.
Now, I've got McKee's section on this. He's got a list of movies for people out there. So this is this is about ironic controlling ideas. The compulsive pursuit of contemporary values, success, fortune, fame, sex, power will destroy you. But if you see this truth in time and throw away your obsession, you can redeem yourself. And then he lists these movies, and you'll know some of these, Jonathan. The Paper Chase, The Deer Hunter, Kramer versus Kramer, An Unmarried Woman, 10, and Justice for All, Terms of Endearment, The Electric Horseman, Going in Style, Quiz Show, Bullets, that's a good movie, that is, Quiz Show, Bullets Over Broadway, The Fisher King, Grand Canyon, Rain Man, Hannah and Her Sisters, An Officer and a Gentleman. Officer and a Gentleman, that's got the terrible act of Richard Gere in, maybe. Tootsie, Regarding Henry, Ordinary People, Clean and Sober, North Dallas 40, the movie I mentioned, Out of Africa, Baby Boom, The Doctor, Schindler's List, and Jerry Maguire all pivot around this irony. each expressing it in a unique and powerful way. As these titles indicate, this idea has been a magnet for the Oscars. Right, so that's that book, Story by Robert McKee.
So yes, Ben is a 6, and he likes to show his experts off.
Yeah, if I think they're good, but he's not so great when it comes to humour. But Robert McKee is a legend. But I got up to page 100 when I was reading this book, and I was like, bloody hell, he's right. So it took until page 100 for me to believe in him.
Okay.
So this is redemption. So, but you'd mentioned before Star Wars, that was when it became the hero's journey. Then I guess is
the reason why I mentioned that is that there's a theory that before Star Wars, arguably you could say that Jaws was that movies were more, they weren't going towards action movies in the 70s. There were some, but they were like more violent kind of thing. It's like, because there's a theory, certain snobbish people might say that Star Wars led to an infantilization of cinema.
Got you. Okay.
And stuff. But there's always been like different strands, and it's just like, and like I said, it was 1970s culture reaction against certain things.
Okay.
The United States became more cynical, and there were movies that sort of reflected this. There may have been a movie with Jane Fonda called Coming Home, something like that, where a guy came home from the Vietnam War and he like shot himself in the foot and he goes out to sea. There's sort of like these things critiquing the values of the time. So these sophisticated movies that again critiqued the values of the time, the redemption plot. And I think those kind of movies would actually be good for threes to see, and they might relate to it because obviously they're going to see the character. And if the three themselves is like, there was also, maybe you could say the movie, is there, I don't know the plot, but I get the idea what it's like. Death of an American Salesman.
Death of a Salesman.
Yeah. Was it that, like, he was like really determined to get success? Is that right, Jonathan?
I don't know. Just know that's not.
He worked so hard. There was a play, and he worked so hard, and that might have been like may have been sort of a left-wing critique of capitalism and like not being able to achieve success. But I imagine that as a three-person, seeing somebody on screen who's trying so hard to achieve success, and they see what this person loses in terms of their personal relationships, that these, and also because a lot of these people in Hollywood are going to have a 3 in their tri-type, then I can see why the Hollywood voting committee for the films is going to very much relate to these redemption plot movies. Yeah, so there's some famous ones out there. Jerry Maguire. And again, Jerry Maguire, Rain Man. Catherine says he plays a 3 in his best roles. So Jerry Maguire might be an example of somebody who starts out as a character that, again, it's I've not seen the film, but I get the overall impression that it's somebody who all of these things to achieve success, cutting corners, and he learns, grows as a person, and again, all of these other things, the work-life balance themes.
Yeah, cutting corners is a temptation for threes because the image says they're looking successful in order to get a particular kind of feedback and to get rewards because they're stereotypes. So threes almost always want material success as well in some way or form.
Okay.
Not just feedback.
I could see
hyper competitive. I'll just say hyper competitive. Sorry, Christen.
Well, all the other stages are competitive.
So I could see in a classroom setting it be very important to them to have like a track and know how they can succeed, and that them being very focused on that could even help others and help the rest of the classroom kind of stay on track in a long line because they do have that, what do you call it, like hyper focus on leveling up.
Yeah, and even a classroom portfolio I could see also being helpful for a student like this, where they can keep pieces of work that they worked on throughout the year, and then they can go back and look and choose their top 10 things. I don't know, best pieces of work, and critique and see how they've grown. And then I could also see where they could go back and look at, well, this is what I thought was good. I did a little bit here, and now I've improved on it. And while it's not failure, it's definitely a learning experience. You know what I mean? Because I'm looking at here, with failure is feedback. They could reframe it as in, I'm constantly moving. I'm constantly growing. And I think that's what portfolio assessment is helpful for students. That's a side effect, I guess you could say, of having, or a benefit of having a portfolio assessment, because like I said, they can track their progress and then choose the thing that best represents them where they are now.
Yeah, I was just saying in its context, I remember when I was at school, when I was very young at school, like they'd still do the thing. I was completely cynical about the merit mark. They would do things like, and the threes would appreciate this. Oh, you've done well. Have a gold star. Like, I don't know if they still do that, Sabrina. It's like for the young kids, like give them a gold star.
With the little ones, yeah.
And then initially at school, when I was at secondary school, I could do, oh, you get a merit mark. Ooh.
hey, we do it now. It's called life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like when it's written, like from the teacher, like, this word is like, here, excellent word, and it's like you get a little piece of paper with it written on.
Yep.
I do it with my students that I notice are especially respond to praise, to make it a point to praise them, whether it's in tutoring or coaching, as their parents are walking up, because that they especially light up, not just that I'm telling them, but that their parents are overhearing it as they're coming over to get them to take them home.
Oh, maybe there's a similar thing of, I don't know if you've got any experience in it. I haven't, but Jonathan, you may secretly have been in the Scouts. Was there like a thing in there, like a combination of 3, with all these badges and a combination of 2 helping these people? That might have come through in the different strands of the Scouts or Girl Guides.
Oh, I did want to touch on mistakes with this type, because this was the type I could see. I had DM'd Jonathan earlier about this, or I guess you guys saw the thread. That rather than, I've had students who really tried to hide their mistakes, or like in the middle, starting a lesson, especially if there's a peer around, trying to like quickly get it fixed. And I don't know that this is specific to 3, but it is a behavior in students sometimes, very much not wanting their mistakes to be seen. And I try so hard to get them to celebrate their mistakes. I'm like, oh my gosh, we found something you can get better at, something you can level up in. You can, and to really like empower them that this is an opportunity to grow more, to learn more, to improve. Sabrina, you said a good phrase earlier about kind of growing through failure, I think. And it takes quite a bit, but it is a really big change in mindset for students that are so focused on achievement, to help them see mistakes as a big opportunity to leap forward.
Yeah, I think that I was going to say it definitely can allow them to reflect back and to see the progress. And like I said, I think it to a certain extent, like I said, sometimes you might think it's good, and then you realize, oh goodness, if I were to go back and do this, I would tweak this, and that. And the reason you would go back and tweak it is because you recognize that you've learned something that adds value to what you had done in the past. And if you can get yourself to see life is like that, it's a continuum. It's more of a spiral going around, revisiting things, but yet going up, that I'd like to think that it would help them not be so hard on themselves, and also be open to feedback as not, a condemnation of who they are holistically. It's specific to help them move forward.
Well, I will say these are actually one of the most positive and optimistic types. That actually they deal with failure by they can move on from failure. They can pick themselves up from failure and go on. They don't actually let failure get them down. If they fail too often, or if they don't get any positive feedback, then they might resort to more deception in the image of success in order to get ahead. That's where the less healthy side comes out. But the 3s, any type can cover up their failures for different reasons. But the 3s are very much a type that seeks to look successful, look efficient. And regarding the point about neurodiversity that came up earlier, in neurotypical, the 3 is actually a type that's very kind of conventional in a way. The 3s always have an idea. The 3s are all get to what other people think are successful and are trying to meet that, as long as they have the ability to do so. They'll look at what they're good at, but they'll also look at what other people will see as successful, and they'll try and meet that as well. So this is one of the types that definitely looks at what is conventional and what is typical. What are the common definitions of efficiency, success, and they're if you're sitting down with a 3 in a conversation, they will modify themselves and try and figure out what you see as successful, and they'll have that chameleon-like quality of trying to be that to you. They'll try and be the sort of success. They'll try and look the success you're looking for.
I think
chameleon.
what could happen is, especially if you've got a male ESFJ, and part of their, because I think a lot of FE could come in here in terms of a strong 3 wing. If you've got,
I would say this is.
wait a minute, Jonathan. Wait a minute. If you've got an ESFJ, and this sort of like, because part of the extroverted values, and part of like what it is, like if you've got a male ESFJ in an American culture that values success, and it was that bit there where I saw the being valuable thing. There can be a lot of that, and it's like that is where they get praise from society. And there's also a certain extent that guardians can be social climbers. And I think an ESFJ male, part of their FE may come out in a, like say they're like a 2-wing 3. It can sort of come out in that way. The 3-wing might come out differently than say a female, but it's sort of like to get that social acceptance, climbing the social ladder, is the success is then bound in with that, a little bit of that social instinct and a little bit of that ethics and what it means to be an individual. It's like those are the values of the society. It's the values of the society. So in other words, FE DOMs are very much into the values of the society. And if the values of that society are very sort of success driven, there's a sort of like, you can see why you've got 2 and 3 next to each other in the Enneagram. You can sort of see some patterns there when you look at FE DOMs. And this is one of the reasons why I believe that FE DOMs tend to have a very strong role function, role TE, because it's like 2-wing 3.
This is a very TE heavy type, almost like even if it's like an ESTP, ESTP is obviously a strong TE. It's kind of a type that uses FE as a tool to figure out what they want and get.
Yes. Sorry, the ENTJ, for example, with role FE, using it to socially network. So if you look at the ENTJ, the way they use FE, it's stereotypically in order to network, to achieve, because there's a Kurz's description of the ENTJ has a heck of a lot of 3-ish vibes in the description. Yes, so towards the end of this section, I'd like to bring Tamsy in for her insights on communicating with 3s.
If she's still there.
Yeah, if she's still there. So, Tamsy, whenever you feel... Oh, here she comes.
I'm sorry. I kind of trailed off for a second. Not going to lie. I was checking a message. I apologize.
Accepted.
I was here until about 30 seconds ago.
Oh, okay, so what are your thoughts on communicating with 3s? What's the best way to deal with a 3?
As a child?
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, as a child, but yeah.
I think just acknowledging them for, it seems to me, and I always come from some weird place. I'm not as expert with the functions as all of you are, but what I feel around 3s is a kind of vibrancy and natural energy that I don't really experience the same way with the other types. It's like this built-in battery is the best way that I can put it, like a built-in spark that's like always there to kind of like fire off. So I feel like working with 3s is really just, again, I'm going to go from the same place that I did with the 2. What I would encourage a 3 is to really align with like what it is that really turns their soul on, like, because they have this tendency to go great and to do things like with such fervor and such consistency. So I'd really try and encourage and let them know that this spark is so beautiful. And if they're going to have that compelling nature to be the ones with all of the grit and the stamina and perseverance and shine in all of these different capacities, that they would really look at kind of taking a step back from what they see everybody wanting and looking at as success, and really start asking themselves like those questions as children, like, well, what would that success look like if you could be anybody and do absolutely anything? It's that kind of cliche thing that I feel like all kids are kind of told, but I really feel like with the 3 child, if there's a way to really sit with them and look at that could be really powerful for them to grow into over time. Maybe this is too corny. Sorry, I realize my mic is off for what you're speaking about here, but that's kind of just where I go with it. Does that make sense or not so much?
Yeah. No, I think all kids need that, as you're saying, permission to kind of look, sit with themselves outside of external expectations and see like what really drives me, what do I really want, what makes me happy, what energizes me. And that.
And I think
something that's great about, tutoring individually or even coaching. I just recently started coaching kids basketball, is to be able to tap into that, because they don't have to fulfill some of the things that schools want and that some structured environments want. I have more freedom to really tap into who they are as a person and promote them to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that what I feel with the 3 in respect to that is that if the 3 is just compelled to this success path, right? And they're going to be driven and constantly seeking that. I think like if there's a way, like all of us need that alignment, but if there's a way with them that would probably remove some of the anxiety and the pain of pushing forward and having all of that anxiety to succeed when it's not their own path, because we're energized when it is aligned with us and we're not when it's not. So what I've seen is like 3s as adults, the difference between like a 3 that was really in their element and then a 3 that's just like totally comes to me frazzled, stressed out, burnt out, and like not in the greatest place. I think if they had have been directed, I know this is important for all of us, but because 3s throw so much energy and so much of their nervous system into it, it would be really, really huge if they had that when they were young. Again, it makes it sound weird because it's like the other types that's not as important, and it is. But I've seen 3s with the burnt out nervous system later down the road. And I guess everything to me and my volume of work and what I teach to at this point in time, and I'm in the conscious leadership space online, in marketing, in business, but with a very like mystical twist. It's its own like very strange, peculiar breed of what I'm doing. But I have had just this opportunity to work with tens of thousands of people over the years, like without exaggeration. And it all boils down to simplicity. And it's like, we need to revamp the world. The first thing we need to revamp is education. And that comes down to giving a lot more permission and value and how important it is to feel safe, nurtured, and emotional intelligence, not just academic intelligence. Right. And it's still so embodied in the system, and it's so hard for colleagues and teachers that I know as well that have these heart-centered approaches but are really stuck to the regimens of what the traditional academic layout looks like, and we're still far from totally tearing the seams at how we get to reinvent that. And it's so beautiful for you to be having this kind of wisdom to hold space for children. But yeah, for 3s, I was raised by, a father who is, an 8-3, he's got 8 and 3 in his personality. And my mom, I believe, has 1 and 6, but her 3 aspect really shines as well. So they both love success and they both love what that looks like. And both really couch to that, and my dad's really driven by that, and so I think that I was raised that way. I probably looked like a 3 growing up and a 2. Like that's probably what I looked like to everybody. I was either overgiving, people pleasing, or winning all the awards and going the furthest, the fastest. And my own life turned into massive burnout because it was so misaligned and so outside of who I truly was. I value that I have that view and that lens now, but I just, so I'm leaving. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Right. That sort of relates to what I said early on, the FE people doing E3 things for FE reasons. So it's like Tamara there doing these E3 things for FE reasons because that's what she was getting from her parents. I also might suggest so Christen, when you talk to E3 kids, do you try and, because they have this desire for success, but they're probably not aware of the different kinds of success. So do you talk to them about that?
Do you think that's true, Jonathan?
I was going to say 3s will identify what they're good at and what they excel in, and they'll go for that. So it will be somewhat dependent on what
they're interested.
There's always a specialization bit to it.
Gotcha.
3s will want to avoid things they're not good at. So, like if a 3 is really good at sports, they want to focus a lot more on sports than in academia. If a 3 is good at science, they want to focus more on science and that. Some 3s will try and tell a 3 if they're good at everything, they will try to be good at everything. But certainly they'll have their particular specialities. So in a way they do, but not in terms of like academic subjects. Like, it's more like in terms of need to recognize that success is not the be all and end all, or that other people don't necessarily value success and hard work as much as they do, and that is fine, and that they need to learn that there's more to life than success. That's almost like the more important lesson. The thing with 3 is actually the type of least. He's one of the things least likely to get involved in something like the Enneagram or any particular psychoanalysis stuff. These are very behavior-focused type. So they're not the most introspective of people, and they can need some help with that. May not always recognize when there's in trouble. Some 3s will try and live up to the expectations of their parents or their teacher or someone else. If they think that's what's going to get in the feedback, so they may want to have their heart set on one thing, but then actually try and live up to someone else's expectations. In some cases, neither of those things are what they really want. What they want something else. So definitely, they can need help from others with regards to like emotional issues. But yeah, I think that's all I was going to say.
Yeah.
To take that and maybe hover a little bit close to what Ben was asking, when I get students that are very fixated on like being smart in math or getting a perfect score on an SAT or maybe getting into a particular private school, it's I definitely try to expand their horizons out and to value some other things. And whether that fixation comes from themselves or their parents, I'm sometimes not quite sure until we get through a few sessions together. But I do try to show them like there's several different ways to be smart, or, it's not just your SAT score, it's what you do with it. There's all these different things in life. And, there's not just, let's say, like engineering as a great, I've had a lot of foreign students. It's not just that engineering's a great path. There's other things like graphic design or IT that are a similar skill set, but maybe allows them to use, basically to kind of like fulfill a little bit of what their parents expecting and branch out into their own path. And what I do with them is just a lot of exposure. Since they do a lot of language arts, we can read and write about anything. So we will do research projects in different realms or from different parts of history or different parts of society, and then do different projects for it. You know, they might do a PowerPoint presentation, a video presentation. And that's just kind of comes from overall in education, making sure they do individual work, they do group work. I grade it, they have a peer grade it, they you know, even get their parents' feedback at times. So that's just from a well-rounded thing. But when a student seems very fixated on a particular path of success, I do try to introduce them to other things, other ways to be successful, other ways to be smart, other ways to be seen as valuable, and to value others to that point too. That, okay, you're great at that. There's other peers that are great at these things, and this is how they're complementary.
Yeah, I was just thinking, should I retitle this event Enneagram and Teaching Styles?
Well, if you do remember to retitle the last event, because it's a sequel, and I want everything to be correct.
Yeah, yes, Jonathan, I you know what I'm like with my titling system. It's pretty pedantic. Because I mentioned this to somebody, and a lot of people, if you were to say like learning styles, they might think, especially if they know Jungian type, they might, like, you know, it's like some of the events we did with Carol. So learning styles might lean more towards, because we are sort of going from a sort of teaching point of view.
Well,
it's a minor thing. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say we're adjusting it to a way that the thing is, there'll be some that will argue there's no such thing as a learning style. Learning styles, but there are in the sense that if we know that how to properly communicate to students, then it makes it easier for us to convey what they need. And then we hopefully have a repertoire of skills to be able to pull out whenever the occasion calls for it.
Perhaps
you could say teaching and learning styles.
Or perhaps Enneagram and teacher-pupil communication, or like
using Enneagram to connect. Using Enneagram to connect with students.
Yeah, you could be connecting with students. And I think there's a comment that says communicating as an influencer, because that's essentially what we're doing is we're making adjustments on our communication.
Yeah, Jonathan said the same. Yeah, well, perhaps he's failed. It's like he's been trying for 5 years.
Yeah, because you know when you start looking at learning styles, I mean, some people will go back to the very traditional, kinesthetic, auditory, visual, and multimodal learning style. But these are definitely communication styles that recognize that there's certain environments holistically that students work better in. And again, it's the relationship that you develop by adjusting your style, not just the style in and of itself. Because you do have to connect. You know, all of the research will show that we do, while learning styles has an influence, it's not the visually or visible learning that would occur at the 0.46. But the 0.40. But relationships are high up there, and this involves creating the relationship based on how these students need to connect, what makes them feel secure, comfortable, welcomed, challenged, and internally and externally, or intrinsically or extrinsically motivated to work with that teacher.
Yes, because those things are the core. That's the foundation that has to be laid before learning can happen.
Yeah. And I think it's easy, I think, and I'm guilty of doing that, is to sort of lump them all as learning styles. But yeah, it's learning connections. It's because we're doing it for learning, not simply just to get to know them. There's a definite purpose to set up that environment that's conducive to their learning. Ben's got me going off. Ben is a bad influence on me. I think I can do this. And then I go boom, 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 every time.
Okay, so I think.
Okay, so to the 4, I don't want to have to jump out before we
finish.
Okay, so last thing, 3s. In summary, 3s children will need rewards, and they'll need a similar direction. They'll need to. They want to focus on what they're really good at, so they may need a bit of direction broadening their horizons a bit, and they like a sense of achievement and success and a chance to be just a little bit better than others. So they do not respond well to environments that are focused too much from their point of view on equality and everyone's a winner. They don't like that sort of thing. They like ones where no, they can be the winner. They can be like the star if they can be. So you need to find that balance between giving them a chance to be successful, but also make sure it's fair and they're not too focused on success. Okay, so that's the summary.
We'll go on to the type 4, the individualist. This is the compassionate, creative, visionary student who likes praise and feedback, likes to sees themselves as unique and special, wants individualized instruction. Some of their growth, like their 3 counterparts, to learn to be a part of the group and avoid rejecting others for the sake of rejecting. And I will defer to the 2 of you, Christen and Jonathan.
So firstly, I have an issue with all of the names of the Enneagram types. This is the one that has given me the most bother, because a lot of people identify as individualists who are not 4s.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, because like especially in modern America, individuality is prized a lot. Like all of ENTPs would see themselves individualists, even though it's pretty rare for ENTPs to be uniform the tri-type.
Yeah, in fact, I'll just say most NTs and SPs would see themselves as individualists.
Yeah, and a lot of NFs. Who knows what SJs are? Maybe SJs do. Who knows? So the 4 has a sense of, as I mentioned, there's a sort of scarcity of love and a scarcity of self-love, a sense that love is a precious resource, and with that comes a certain sense of competition. Like I said, 2, 3, and 4, they can all be competitive in their own way. They can all be jealous and envious in their own way about particular things. 4s trying to be special, unique, stand out in a certain way. This can affect things like how they dress. A lot of 4s will dress quite normally, but some 4s, certainly you'll find 4s who dress like in vintage clothes, for example, or certain classy thing. The stereotypical 4 would be like a kind of goth culture, whatever, but that's really more like a 6 with 4, because a lot of 4s they may be drawn to that sort of thing, but they'll feel uncomfortable because everyone looks the same. The 4 does not want to look the same. The 4 wants to have their own particular style or flair. So if a 4 sees someone who's dressed the same as them, they can be just disgusted. They want to change immediately. Whereas the 3 will be looking for the brand names more.
Gotcha. 4s, I'm vintage. Yeah. Got this in a boutique. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. So 4's a very feeling heavy type. Even if a thinker has 4 in their tri-type, they'll be more figure-like. There's a strong emphasis on self-expression, the ability to express themselves, whether it's through music or poetry or acting or the arts, whatever, or their passion for protest. 4s can be, all 4s speak out for, I guess, injustice and for individual rights. They're very sensitive to issues of rights, but it's usually things that they personally identify with and they personally relate to. They might see themselves as trying to, although I don't like the term individualist, they certainly do see themselves as fighting for individual rights and wanting other people to express their individuality. Now, 4s can sort of at the same time imagine that everyone's kind of, like every type, 4s can imagine that everyone deep down is the same as them. So their idea of individuality is sort of like the 4's expression for their own personal uniqueness. So they're not necessarily, what 4s need to recognize is that everyone is being themselves according to their own type. A 4 look at people of different types, think you're not being authentic, you're not being true to yourself. because that's not what I would do in that situation. I don't relate to that, especially if they're FI heavy. Yeah, well, all fours would be a bit more FI heavy. Even if they're ENFJs, they'll have that stronger FI. But they're sort of a sense of, they are compassionate. There's particularly more other people's suffering. They tend to focus more on they're more comfortable with the darker emotions, the ones that other people or society in general does not seem to acknowledge, because society will have more 2s and 3s overall, like collectively, and dirty volume types as, and they're trying to say like they're sort of different. They're sort of, Ben, I can hear you. It's very distracting.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I was going to suggest you bring Tamsy in, because she's a 4. She's very good at the 4 stuff, Tamsy.
I don't know what was just kind of triggered in me as you were saying that. Triggered. I don't feel triggered in a bad way. I used to. But I would feel like I'm just remembering being in school and like in my pictures, and people still do this to me now. And now I'm just like, yeah, and what's your point? But back then I would get so offended because people would tell me I was always looking so dramatic in my pictures, or like sad or melancholic, and like, can't you just smile? And why do you have to be so dramatic all the time? And I hated myself. I was like, what is everybody's problem? Like, I'm not even saying anything. I'm just shut up. I'm quiet. I'm doing my own thing. Like, I don't understand why everybody's pointing out all these things all the time, like trying to get me to smile more, trying to get me to act more happy. And I was bubbly and happy sometimes, but I guess my intensity and my facial expressions used to worry like teachers, or worry my parents, or worry people. And they were always trying to get me to just like lighten up and stop being so dramatic. And those were the things that I would hear a lot as a child. And if I look back and I could ask my parents now, you know, and they did the best that they could, but when people are looking for you to be a certain way and society is set up that way, it's really hard as a 4 child. Like, I spent a lot of time in my room, poetry and listening to the sappy, sad songs, and like fantasizing about like the other worldly places. And then I'd come out of my room and I'd have to be like the 3 or the 2, right? Like running around, doing everything, getting all the grades, being on all the sports. And I look back now and I ask them, and like, did you guys ever just think that maybe I was like a poetical type of person or something? Like that maybe I didn't want to do any of those things? And now, you know, when my parents see what I'm doing, and yeah, I can see they're dumbfounded. Like they take a gulp. Like, we didn't mean to, you know, do all that to you. Nobody realized that everything they were saying was traumatizing all the time, because they were trying to encourage me to not be so intense about life. But as a 4, it's like sipping on life is intense. Like everything feels intense. Like people come near you and you're picking up and you're feeling all of the different things. And yeah, we're born with that drama and that like movie kind of thing inside of us. So it's strong, even if it's simple. And it's like finding that beauty in simple moments and wanting to really just get lost in something. And being called, they used to always call me a space cadet, or, you know, a space cadet, or, but what was the other name? It was something else, but it was like a flighty term. So I know INFJs always get nicknamed like spacey, and I get it. I'm talking like a Valley girl or a bit, however, and I realize that when I'm on video. When I'm in a business setting, I'm very direct and concise, and it doesn't come across like this. But if I'm just free, I do sound airy and whatnot. So people do look and go, oh, she's just, you know, run off and emotional and this. But to me, I'm right here. I'm right in the heart of it. And nothing is going outside of the lines. And I'm exactly where I think the focus is. But to other people, it sounds so dramatic. I get it. but we really are. So I think, you know, speaking to a 4 child and maybe validating and honoring that things are really intense. Like it is intense, and you are hidden a bit because you know that if you express that a lot of people aren't going to really understand you, or they're going to try and redirect it like it's unhealthy, when maybe it's just beautiful. And you just want to be able to express that and feel those feelings without this construct in society that goes happy feelings, sad feelings, good feelings, bad feelings. All feelings are proper feelings. They're all things that are natural to experience. And I think if like a 4 can go to those depths and it not be unhealthy or morbid or bad, it's just really accessing the full color of the world. And I think that if a 4 child is validated in that and helps to show the beauty of being in those dramatic intensities, that it can help propel like a healthier society in general. So maybe giving, you know, the 4s the opportunity to show other students that range of expression and inviting them a little bit out of their shell to explain how those things feel. And that's just my own personal experience, but I do witness that in 4s in general. A lot of the times we were very hidden in many ways as a child because we felt crazy because of the weird comments that teachers and adults gave me. Hello, Miss Prone, get out of the clouds. Why are you in the clouds? Well, because the clouds are here too. It's not just, you know, the staleness of whatever you're trying to tell me in this moment. I'm looking at all of these different things. I'm feeling life. And a lot of that was suppressed. And a lot of people get very depressed because, you know, the focus and landscape, especially of teaching in a classroom, I wanted that success, but I also wanted the color of my thoughts in life. And like, why are we cutting those parts off of people? Like, that's crazy. So now, you know, that's how I would approach that. If you see a dreamer in the class, or you see somebody that's taking their pencil and can't pay attention, amazing, beautiful. That child is connected to something that is probably brighter than what is being delivered to them. And they might be in a higher scope. They might be in a much bigger place of something that's greater than that lesson in the moment. So they're not rude. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not a bad child. They're not undisciplined. They're not unworthy of being great. They might just find it boring, which I did a lot. And so I oftentimes, you know, skipped a lot of grades, and I excelled in school, and I found a lot of school entirely boring, and would get called out, even though my grades were like perfect, because I was in all of these other dimensions and worlds, and the homework I could take a small amount of time and concentrate and do at home, where I was really distracted in the classroom setting and penalized for being a dreamer. So that's just my own personal kind of lend to that, because I think a lot of times teachers look at you like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you here? And I just wasn't there because there was something much more beautiful in my mind.
You know, you made me think back to, this was several years ago when I worked in a youth program, military child care up in Groton, Connecticut. I used to teach cartoon drawing, well, basic drawing, and then I ended up doing a basic and cartoon drawing class for kids that were school age. And I remember one young man that I had, he was there, he had me, I think I was there for 2.5, 3 years, and he took just about everything that I offered. And when I was getting ready to leave, his mother said, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I was like, what do you mean? She said, you're leaving. And I said, yeah, we're going down to Kings Bay. And she said, thanks to you, he doesn't have to go. He has not had to go to therapy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she said, you're the first teacher that didn't freak out by his drawings. And I said, what do you mean? She said, whenever he would draw, he used to draw the little muscle men, and sometimes they'd have a knife and they were fighting, or, you know, and she said that we were worried about him because he was drawing these little violent things. And I said, well, I told him that if he's going to draw like that, I want a story. Because in my mind, I'm looking at a future, someone that's going to work for Marvel Comics. And she said that helped him tremendously, because I didn't judge him. He was so used to having the teachers send him to the guidance counselor for that. And again, and I'm sitting there thinking, I said, yeah, that's where that, free thought, free expression. I can think of teachers back in the day that would let us do journal activities as the bell ring, or something that you do for 5 to 10 minutes before the lesson starts. And I can remember even for myself, sometimes, especially, if I wasn't having the best day, it was a great way to brain dump, and then you can focus. Would that have been something that could have helped you? I'm just curious. Because now I'm sitting there.
As you're saying that, and to me, it's so precious. It's like one for the team humanity, when people get children, because this kind of thing, this is the treasure, this is the gem. Any individual or soul that's really interested in connecting with children, I just think that's so powerful and so beautiful to take that time to learn this stuff, to connect with students. And you probably forever change the course of that student's life. Because I had the mass academia focus because of my parents' background, I always super excelled and probably was ahead of the pack. So I was okay in that way, but also it would have been so huge to have a teacher validate me and not say, stop calling me a dreamer in front of the class. I was invited into Mensa, in grade 5. I had academic, I had the academic aspect as well. I was never, ever really allowed to have the artistry side, which is much more present and dominant in my personality. It screams, and now I have a path that's I'm teaching people how to make money with an alternative type of education, with an alternative type of mind, and to go outside the grain. That's what I do now. And the way that with my children, when you were telling your story, it actually brought to heart my son, who is a 5, but he has 4 in his tri-type. And I remember getting a report card from his teacher, and I ended up homeschooling because there were so many different things that came up. But the report card said, in kindergarten, your son can't do up his zipper. That was the emphasis of the report card. And he's very behind in this, and that. And I thought that's really strange, because when he was 4 years old, he was in a Montessori program, and he won the awards in all the regions for reading, writing. He has, I believe, an Asperger's type of mind, and he's hyper intelligent. So I couldn't, for the life of me, figure out why they were saying he's behind in all of this stuff. And I realized that there's just very little opportunity. And I can't blame anybody, because the teacher might just be so overwhelmed with classroom sizes that they're not able to really spend that individual time with the children. But it turned out he wasn't behind in readers. He was actually at a grade 2 or grade 3 level in kindergarten. He just didn't care to concentrate on that in class, or didn't like the vibe of the teacher. And at home he read, but he wouldn't in the classroom. And in the classroom, he didn't want to speak. He's an INTJ, if that says anything here, as well as a 5. So he just had his own motive and his own feelings. And if he had have had any teachers that weren't shaming him for things like he couldn't do up his zipper and didn't want to speak in front of the class and didn't want to, behave in these particular ways, if he had somebody like you, I look back, because that's what he wanted to do, was just draw. And it was. And now, you know what, he wouldn't draw for years. And now he's heavily into music, and he's not in the regular education program. And to me, because of what I've turned into, I look and go, well, you know what, maybe he's going to make some incredible records and music, be part of the vibrant current music scene. And other parents might gawk at that and go, oh my gosh, that's not going to be, he's not going to be a traditional path. But speaking from a 4 mom, I'm just so excited that he's going to do something that he really loves. Even if the rest of the world is judging me right now that I haven't done the traditional path with him, I feel like he's happier. So,
well, you're talking. Well, I'm a parent who believes that all children should have an art in addition to an academic, or or sport. I was never athletically inclined. I would try to join teams, and they'd say, "We're going to invite you to sit in the audience." But that, that being, and I was fine with that. But that being said, gosh, even with something like music, with music and art, those things can be tied to other professions. It's a matter of showing them how they can use those to boost their career goals and their skills in creative ways. For example, if he enjoys music, if he produces music, he might be somebody who does one, in one job, but somehow is able to integrate that music into video production or something that makes him stand out from the rest when it comes to competing in the job market. And there's just, I could spend hours talking about art and the importance of art and education. I'm a STEM person, but I believe that it all goes together because you can't have one effectively without the other one, I believe.
I think that would be very good, say, visual artistic skills for NTs to communicate their ideas visually. I mean, Dave does a bit of that. Dave Mark Kersey.
Yep.
And I think a child that has a teacher, like either, you're both teachers, right? Am I correct?
I'm out of the classroom. I'm a technology instructional specialist. I teach teachers now how to integrate technology into their classroom to deliver instruction and in order to drive their instruction through data.
Right. So I feel for anybody that's participating in a panel or something like this, any child is lucky to have any soul that's like this invested in learning and understanding personalities and taking that extra mile. So I think a type 4 student that has any teacher that's going to literally like look at them and just be interested in them, show that sincere interest in them too. I think that that's key for all types of children, but showing the importance of art and allowing that to be real and seen as real by a teacher would probably have been hugely validating.
And I think, Tamara, your story as a 4 and being a dreamer and having a serious look on your face and some of the judgment that can come with that as a child, and I really highlights the importance that as an educator or just as a leader in general, the power in leading isn't telling a person what to do or how they should be. It's in curiosity and starting with questions to help open up a path for them. And there's a great book on this for business. It's called Multipliers. And the entire book, for the most part, at least from what I can remember of it, is about leading with questions. And there's a lot of power in asking a student who's kind of starts spacing out during a lesson. And I'm like, oh, what are you thinking about? And when they genuinely answer, it's amazing, especially for the high performing students, like you say, the things that they share then and how they're actually taking like what we were talking about and leapt like 5 steps forward to another thing. And it is related and it helps me see what their abilities are and what their interests are, and then to try and string it all together to customize my lesson. Or if they're behind, that there might be something else going on outside of the lesson, maybe personal, that is like a bit of a blocker that could use some attention and some care.
Yeah,
I think you really highlighted the need to lead with questions. And just because you're an educator, a coach, a mentor, doesn't mean it's always telling a person what to do. There's a lot of power in starting with curiosity.
Yeah, that's super beautiful. I mean, just as you're speaking, I'm trying to imagine being, I used to teach yoga and classroom dynamics of up to 40 students in school. And I remember putting myself in a timeout a few times, like the first few classes, because the kids were so out of control and all over the place. I cried. I remember the principal was watching, the kids' parents were coming, and I'm like this crazy 4 that they were like, oh, do you want to teach yoga to the entire school, whoever signs up after? And I was so excited that a school was going to introduce yoga to children. And I thought, oh, this is a miracle. And this is going back years ago. And the bell rang and the kids ran in and they were crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, this is nuts. And everything, this is my people pleasing in the 2 days. So they'd say, Can the teachers watch? Can the principal watch? Can you do this? Can you do that? Can it be all ages? Yes, 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 of course. Yes to everything. And I got in there in age group from grade 1 to grade 6, and it was a mess. I'm not gonna lie. And I had so much sympathy for teachers. I was like, how the heck do they do this? Like, how is this even possible as a career? I have no idea, never mind the subject. And, you know, it was a silly thing. The third class, I realized I have to take a different approach. And I used a singing bowl. I don't know if you know what those are, but those Tibetan bowls that make the echoing noise. And I sat in the middle of the gymnasium with that bowl. And, you know, 40 students later, all sitting around me, everybody quiet. And I realized, wow. So, you know, the power of music, you know, that was just a silent moment. I didn't do anything else, and it captivated everybody, and I didn't need to yell. And, you know, I was really able to kind of start using things like the Enneagram with my students, then realize, you know, who was the one that needed a lot of attention, who was this. But that amount of energy, when I think about you as a teacher, what you just said, like, of, you know, asking with curiosity or trying to formulate a plan for all of these different character types in a room, I feel like I couldn't do it. I really feel like that takes such a tremendous amount of motivation on your own end to have that in your heart, to create something diverse for all of these different, now that you have this knowledge of the Enneagram. So just a huge commending to all teachers.
Tamsy, I remember when I saw one of your early videos, you had a lot of energy in your videos. And I thought, could she be ENFP? And I'm like, Ben, what was the ENFP about me? And there's some people, some people said in the comments that you seem very expressive, but I will remind, so could you maybe talk about these two halves of you, where it's like there's a side that really wishes to introvert, and it's like people go away, but people see this more expressive part of you in these videos. And so what is that dynamic like for you?
Oh, can I just say that I'll have to jump off. Thank you so much, Ben, for getting this together, Jonathan, Sabrina, and Tamsy for being here.
All right.
It's been awesome. Thank you.
Because I think it's that, yeah, thanks, Christen. Because I think it's that tension with INFJ, where it's like you've got these two functions which are so far apart from each other, where FE is like the most, especially around people, it's like the most focused on other people when you're communicating with an FE Dom. And then, but NI is so internal, so subjective. I just wonder, what is it like? Because it's like, I think it would be interesting, Sam, if you talked about what your sort of like, your preference is like. You know, like, I think you have a strong preference to introverts, and then how you feel that maybe you have like maybe demands to, like, you've gone down certain roads to where you have to extrovert and people see you in a certain way.
So the truth is, this moment, like when I get passionate or lit up, or there's memories coming into my body, like they're in my body. So I'm not even aware of how I just popped right now until you brought attention, and now my cheeks are getting hot and I'm feeling like, oh God.
This is the first time that I've met you, but I would say it's because we were talking about something that was near and dear. That's your child. And when you went back in time thinking about how your child was treated, that is going to bring out the mama cat in anybody.
Yeah, and so I think that you're extremely right. And when I get passionate, it's because they're like heated volcano moments of like things that I'm really aligned with. And then I have enough energy. I say to people, like, I literally feel like I can throw mountains if I'm in alignment with something.
There was years ago when my son was in pre-K, he had a teacher who had no business being a teacher. She didn't work for our school system, thank goodness. She had very long talon-like claws, which if you spend weekends getting nails that are 2 inches long and are bright red, you probably don't need, you don't mix paint, you don't play with Play-Doh, you know, you don't wipe noses, because you've got to look cute. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it's not somebody that I would expect to be a pre-K teacher. And I remember this one day, she took my son and she had her fingers in his shoulder and she went like that. And she said, Taken, he's gotten on my last nerve. And so I told him, I said, stop the car. And he looked at me. So I got out and I said, can we have a talk? She said, yes. I said, what happened? He and a bunch of boys decided that they were taking over the housekeeping section, and they took the spatula and they started playing swords and wouldn't let the girls play house in the kitchen. And I said, was anybody hurt? No, but that's not how you play with spatulas. So I took a deep breath and I said, I get evaluated on a state test, and I have a class this year that does not stop talking. I have kids that are on several different academic levels, and I have to prove that I have taken them from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Never in all of the years that I have worked with teachers and students, or with students, have I ever talked to a parent that way, ever. I said, you haven't acknowledged that my son came to you reading. He knows his numbers. He's extremely bright, and that has nothing to do with anything that you've done. I said, the next time you approach me, you may want to start with something positive, even if it is the child has a nice smile. And she stood and she looked. And then I said, oh, we're not done. And then I walked over to the director and I said, I'd like to set up a meeting with you. And she said, okay. The next day when I got there, she said, we don't need to have our meeting. Her contract will not be renewed. If I could get somebody else in the middle of the year, I would. And that was it. I mean, and like I said, to this day, it fires me up because I could not even imagine. And believe me, there are definitely some feelings that I've had that are not positive. But to actually put that off on a child or onto a parent, and like I said, to hand them, if she would have approached me separately, it'd have been one thing, but she did like that. And like I said, to this day, it fires me up. So believe me, Tamara, I understand that you can be bubbly 1 minute, but when it comes to your kids, that will pull you down faster than anything else.
Yeah, it's like that will awaken a dragon in any mom.
Oh yeah. Fire dragon.
You don't really care nothing else matters. Well, I guess for some of us, I guess it's not true with others, but for me, that's where people, so it's very strange, Ben, like also to say, like, I've gotten hugely into human design, which helps kind of fill a few gaps for me as to like what this means of why I'm also looking in these different ways. But as far as Enneagram goes, one of the things that I could also say is that this is also behind a screen. This is in the comfort of like a dark room with essential oils going, and I can turn off my camera and like sit back and do what I need to. It's very like much my own world, and I've opened it up here. So I also feel like it's easier to be colorful, and anybody that sees me online would think I'm an extreme introvert, or anybody that sees me and that has seen me in a clinic setting or at the shop giving direction to people thinks I'm an extrovert because of the colorfulness of my engagement. I can't help it. When I have souls or people in front of me, one or two things happen. Either feel very rejectful of the person that's in front of me, and I'm desperately trying to get away. Like everything inside of me is like screaming and freaking out, trying to make up any reason why I get to leave. And I'm extremely anxious, or I feel really pulled into the aura and the field, and something just naturally blooms. Yeah. So that's just the way that I am. It's either like an invitation or a repelling energy, and it either awakens me and makes me vibrant, or it makes me want to run away. And what typically happens in these things that we do here that you invite me on, the first hour it takes me time to warm up, and then I get perky, And then for like an hour, I'm like, ah. And then what happens is by the third hour, I'm like, you can see it's like my eyes look lopsided in the video. Like I don't even, I'm like, I'm melting, I'm draining away. So it just seems to be a particular rhythm that I have. It's like I like to be awakened, and then I get fully involved, but then it's like I fizzle out, and I really just need weeks, you know, or a month or two before I want to do this again, even though I love it in the moment that I'm sparked. So that's just what it is. And I realize that I don't even have to try and figure out what that is. It just is that. That's just what happens. And it's just how I operate. I don't know what all the functions are with that, but it's like a perfect moment. Just gets inspired and it's great, and then it's done. I don't know. And then I really, really love-hate people. It's just such a weird thing, you know. I love you while I'm talking to people, and then if you ask me, oh, would you like to go hang out in a group of people tomorrow? I would say, no.
Oh, right.
Not. And even though I'm having such a great time, my reflex is always going to say no. Like I have people in my town that have been asking me for 15 years. I'm an absolute hermit, minus my couple close friends. I won't go out with anybody.
Yeah.
I will do it if it's my work, and I will do it online. But otherwise it's a hell no. I don't know. It's really confusing.
Yep. Yeah, I know. I fully understand. Like sometimes at the end of the day, this is my haven. It's my me time.
But see, I like this. And so my brain logically goes, okay, Tamara, so you like this moment. Why wouldn't you just agree to it tomorrow? But if Ben said to me right now, Tamara, will you come back on tomorrow to continue this with us? I would say no.
Yeah, I know, because I call it the Tamsy version. Once a month at most.
I love it. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like also like something I'm doing in sort of I'm coming up with my own model V, and sort of emphasizing that in INFJ, and so you really see with you, Tamara, that FE really is situational, and it's context dependent.
Like this all, Ben. I don't even know at the end of the day. Some days I look at all the Enneagram parts and I'm like, my brain can weave and feel into all of these so much that I could go and start doing those skits on YouTube where I like make up the different Enneagrams, right? So you feel into it and you become so like, whoa, what is that like?
Yeah.
You know, that's why I got into the acting and stuff like that at a young age, and I was doing really well, but the industry is really dark, so I swiped left on that. But people would say, because my parents raised me saying I was always dramatic, so what did I think I should do? I thought I should be in drama because I was so dramatic. So I literally went into drama because people had called me dramatic for so long, but I was also always known as the shy kid in the class. Everywhere we moved, I was always the shyest one that the teachers were trying to go and sit other kids beside so that I would have somebody to talk to. And then I'd like just zone in on my work, and I didn't like, having a bunch of people. I would try and help them because I thought that's what you do. And you already know how to do this, but it would get me in trouble for talking. And then I'd be too serious, and then I'd be off in the clouds. It was like I wanted so badly to just be seen. I really did. So I felt happy in school and tremendously sad and scarred at the same time. What a white wall, like just crazy combination. I don't even know what to think about myself anymore. Catherine called me a 6 because of my testing. And
that was an awkward moment.
The thing is that I've redone the test, and where I turned out to be a 6 in the test is because I wouldn't admit to the elite question on the picture. So she has these pictures, and one of them has like the 4s as elite. And I just was like, ew, I don't want to be associated with being elite. So even though that's the one that makes the most sense for me, I'm not picking it out of stubbornness. And finally, now I'm in this elite business group, and I was like, what the heck am I doing in here? And I was like, well, all the values I align with in this group. And when the word elite was explained to me in a way that wasn't so vulgar and repulsive, I thought, well, maybe that I can choose yes to the one that makes sense to me. And so since doing all of that and redoing the test, then I do test as a 4. But who knows? I have a theory that FE people, FE home people, FE in the top 2, like lead or auxiliary, don't like the word elite, because it's like they're so focused on other people and connection with other people that elite sounds like aloof from other people. And the trouble is, if I want to be honest, though, like I am aloof with a lot of people. I'm a jerk with a lot of people. I'm very selfish with my time. I'm a time hoarder. And so what happens is people feel this niceness because we're connected, right? We're engaged right now. So you see me as an engaged person. But then, Ben, I'm a giant a-hole because I don't even respond to anybody for like a month, and I ignore everybody's messages, and I'm fully give myself permission now to need a ton of space from everybody and everything.
But I realize with you though, like you're a single mother and you're running this like really like this successful, like you've really got this NF business thing going on with that, and you do a lot of live streams for a long time. You say a lot of hours a week in output of, and it's a high quality monologue.
I need a lot of time for myself, and I get none. Between my business, my clients, my community endeavors for the past 14 years, and very special circumstances going on with my children, having time alone is almost impossible, and it's what I need the most. But this is the INFJ thing. It's like, do the dishes or make the art. I'm going to do the dishes because they're going to drive me freaking crazy. But what am I going to do? Right?
I love it.
Yeah, it's like there's like preference, like what you would prefer to do. I think it's your preference would be to hermit and read.
Jesus. Now what I do is my dishes are not done while I'm doing this. It has caused an inflammation in my body that my kitchen is messy and there's somebody coming over with my kids that I literally was like, Tamara, no, get on the thing. You said to Ben, you're doing the thing at 4.
Yes.
Okay. That is the first responsibility, even though you've got major anxiety right now that your house isn't in perfect order. And by perfect order, I don't mean like it has to be, well, maybe I do. I just prefer things to be really clean. But then can I just say this and then I'll be done my tangent, Ben? I did stay up till 4 in the morning writing poetry, singing and dancing in my living room because I couldn't sleep. And I just need to do the artsy things, but my brain does get taken over with all the responsibility first. So it's like, I think ideally I do permit myself to be this expressive, creative being, but really what I do is all the responsible things and then allow myself an allotted time to kind of make it a little bit of a balance somewhere.
So just to say, so is it having stuff clean for other people, thinking about what other people would think, like being judged on those things?
I've had a lot of that in my life, and coming from like a European background and culture and my last marriage and other things, there's part of that. I know I'll be judged. It's not I think I'll be judged, like I am going to be judged and people are going to talk about it. And I will, because of my psychicness and all that part of me, I feel when people are saying things. I know when they're saying things, and I can literally call them and say, did you just say this sentence? So the judgments I receive from others, I care less about them judging me, and I'm annoyed more by them spending any time thinking about me. Just screw off. Go do your own life. Stop looking at all the places I failed because you're a part of them, and I don't hold you accountable to the esteem that I should. So just let me be me. And plus, who cares at the end of the day? We've all been like really weirded out by looking a certain way when really we'd all have happier, healthier lives if we were just more human with one another. So that's one reason why I would like it clean when people are coming over. But B, it actually just drives me crazy. I like a minimalist life. I sucked with my parenting the past few years with getting them to be accountable to clean. I was hyper vigilant about that the first 14 years of parenting. The last 3 have sucked. So I was used to being like more militant with my kids, even though it's not really natural. I did it. That one aspect was like, I had the kids when we went out everywhere that everybody was like, oh my gosh, how are your kids so well behaved? How is your stuff so clean? And now I'm just like, oh gosh, like backfired big time. So now I am at war with not really wanting any of this. I would rather just a cabin in the woods and a rock in the lake and to make a pot of soup once a week, and actually having to be a normal person in the world. You have lots of dishes every day, lots of cooking and cleaning and laundry and all the other things. And so part of me just, when there's clutter and there's stuff everywhere, you can't think, you can't breathe. It's like extensions of energies and things.
Yeah, I love when we did I was just say that, like, because a lot of people might be watching this that don't know certain aspects of you typologically. Like, I thought that was like a hilarious moment when, like, you really went off on one. Your E1 kept that where you went off. It's a brilliant moment with you and Jonathan where you were like fixated on the wagon peeler. And Canada's like, this law needs to change. It's like Jonathan's like, is that yes or no? It's like, it was a brilliant moment. And so, like, you've got that bit of one in you, and I remember that you've got that.
I have friends with really messy houses, and I don't judge them, and I actually feel really like empowered and liberated by them being allowed to just be messy, and they're more fun with their kids. I wasn't a fun mom. I did all the things. It was Martha Stewart looking, cookie cutter. It was beautiful. Everybody else, praised me as a mom. I got it all done. But my kids missed out on like playing. Like, I suck at playing with kids. So now I try and play with adults because I'm like, they missed out. I screwed that part up with them a lot. And I just, that compulsiveness of that one aspect, whether it's like the conditioning or just how I am. But I found models that work better. Just have 4 plates and 4 glasses and 4 spoons. And the kids can only make so much mess. The teenagers can only make so much mess. So instead of a war in our house over do the dishes, or me like having anxiety, instead it's like, guess what, Tamara? At most, it can only ever take me an hour to clean every single thing in my kitchen. That's if every pot, every utensil, anything is used and they spit on the floor. It could still only take me an hour to clean it. So things like that are really powerful for me as I've gotten older in this mom role. 17 years later, but I've probably scarred them, from being so insane for years before. And now we're finding more of a balance.
Yeah. How do you think that Essex instinct manifests in you? Because of the differences between like the subtypes, the 4, and it. Because you're saying that might be where some of the dramatic things come from, and the expression, and maybe the Essex is the SX4 a bit more creative?
Well, sorry, I was just gonna say the war in this moment as a parent is the 4 wanting them to be able to be themselves. Because I know adults have messy rooms, and some adults don't like doing dishes, and just because I'm the mom that tells them to doesn't mean they're gonna grow up and they're gonna do that. Like, I want them to actually find a healthy way to be themselves. And I know it's kind of neurotic, and like, you don't have to have a clean bedroom to be a happy person.
Yeah.
I think what I've observed, but for me, that's not true. You do need a clean bedroom to be happy if you're me. So I have to understand that like, that's not necessarily going to be a compulsion that's ever going to matter to them. So the 4 part of me really is at war with, that's where my house is crazy. On Monday, it's like a lick it clean. On Wednesday, it's like a bomb. On Friday, it's lick it clean. On Saturday, because I'm at war trying to figure out, what do I do? Do I let people be themselves and do their own thing? Or do I have the order that I prefer? Like, it's hard. It's a warring personality, the 4 and the 1.
Yeah, so it's like, I sort of see it as, you could say it's like you've got these FE and these SI voices in your head in terms of, we mean no. What are prove me wrong?
Driving me crazy. Like, if I want to be honest, it's a lot.
Yeah, because it's like Vanderhoek would say it's like your top function is like your conscious orientation, and it's like you've got this. You might say you've got this orientation towards your inner world, and that would be your preference. But you've got this secondary voice, like and Vanderhoek called it for Effie the world as obligation, all these feelings of obligation. And then you've got that SI voice, which is towards, it's got to be spick and span. And what will other people think? And it's like these extra voices that are part of you competing for your field of consciousness, whereas your preference would be the NI, the world of NI. And also, I believe, connected to your, because maybe you could talk about, because you've talked about it in some of your videos about the way your SX instinct expresses itself. And that it's not SX with a big S. It's not necessarily sexual, but like the way that you sort of differentiate between sexual and sensual, that sort of thing. Because I know you talk quite about that.
Yeah, I think that would be such a great way to illustrate actually the 4 and the 1, because the 4, like, I want to be allowed to express myself. I want to be able to speak to a narrative on the planet that's not been highlighted and that is just awakening, which is that judgment of the world over being human and sensuality and sexuality being a huge part of how we were birthed into the world, how we were created, how we explore our moving life, and there being so much taboo and shame over speaking to that or being allowed to express it. So the 4 part of me, I really love intimacy of everything. Like, I would call this very intimate. I'm not unlike, everybody's personality has come to play. Like, I feel everybody's energy in the space. It's small, it's bright. I like everybody here. It feels intimate. I feel like I can be myself. It's good. So I feel like everything I want to participate in life to feel really satiating to me has to have an element of intimacy, which means, pulling off the masks and just actually speaking to truth and engaging in a moment and really enjoying it. And I had a lot of repression, and so have many people in the world and many women. And I also had a lot of trauma around sexuality and sensuality and a lot of confusion growing up around that. And so I kind of pivoted to an extreme expression of that the last few years with my, other AKA sensual mystic for a lot of my branding. And it's because I'm deeply delved in the mystical world. I'm allowing myself to lead with my intuition and emotion first. I'm allowing myself to express that in a way that I feel also has intelligence incorporated to invite people to understand what it is, but most importantly, permission to allow people to be whoever they are, whatever they are, in whatever capacity they are, and still have room to take up space on this planet, even if other people are going to say, no, I don't like that. The 1 part of me followed a really Puritanism path in terms of yoga for a lot of years. So now I'm tantric. Tantric is the way, it's part of, it's through, it's taste, it's devouring, it's sensuality with a piece of chocolate, it's enjoying what you have. The Puritanism path for a lot of years had me doing everything perfect, abstaining, a celibate route, a monastery path, a revoking of any desires. And I walked in that role for a really long time until I realized that it just actually didn't fit. And I was doing it because it felt like it was the correct thing, like in my mind, but in my body, it was like, wow, I'm actually hating on everything that I am. And eventually that 4 part was so suffocated that, I walk that delicately. You can see that like alternating in my presence online.
Tamara, because some people are interested, I could put some links in here of the things that you do on Facebook and those. So if you could tell us about the services that you offer on Facebook, because I think people would be interested.
So right now, I'm really, really specifically focused on helping conscious leaders go online with their business. And what I mean by that is those that are spiritual, alternative, holistic, creative, artistic, those that feel a little outside the box and that haven't quite found their ability to shine, to come online and be able to make their living that way by going through, I work with frequency and strategy. So I work with energetics and a very mindset and mystical base. And then we incorporate like the typical business, marketing, and sales and grow online from a very individualized space. So I call it a conscious leadership space. And yeah, very specifically focused on helping people make money online with their gifts and their talents at this point in time.
Right. I'll
find me on Instagram or Facebook by my name or by sensual-mystic.
Yeah, I'll link the group that you've got on your Facebook page.
Oh, yes.
The online business frequency and creative genius portal for conscious leadership.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
In fact, I will get that so that people can see it. The title for that. There we go.
Thank you.
Right then.
Laura, I sent you a link in the private chat to some a site that I've shared with my daughter. I have a 6-year-old grandson, and my daughter is going through some challenges with helping him organize some of his stuff. Called Clutterbug Me. Really, really cool site. Clutterbug.me, and they give you 4 different types. You have the bee, the cricket, the ladybug, and the butterfly.
That's so sweet. I'm gonna copy paste that. Can I?
Yeah.
What I did, Tamsy, I've sent it to you over Facebook as well. That
okay.
Little link.
Thank you. Can I confess also, my kids are teenagers and their rooms are clean. What's not clean is what they do in the kitchen while I'm not in the kitchen.
Ah, gotcha.
Where I struggle. they drop it off for me, and then nobody's available to participate. So I need to own up. I need to get a little more comfortable with being authoritarian to like a degree again. But actually, this link will be so useful for a lot of people that I speak to. So I will share that. I have to own up to the discomfort of just making them participate.
So is that pretty built out? Are you still using that page, Tamsy, the essential? Yeah, you probably are. Yes, Ben, it's on my contact stuff. I know social media. It's thoroughly active. Right.
What page?
Where's it? I've got it on screen, sensualmystic.com.
Well, you can use that, but that's not, I don't even use the website anymore. That's just there. It's fine for them to have it, but I don't know. It's not really that relevant. I know that sounds crazy.
So it's mainly that Facebook group, the online business frequency. Right.
That's better because the Facebook page just says a little bit about me, but can I just let you in all in a secret? Like websites are pretty much not even needed unless you're in like the super premium space or unless you're in e-commerce. And by super premium, I mean like 50K, 100K offers. But like anything underneath that, use your social media like Instagram, Facebook. That's where people are looking to actually binge on your content. So that's just a weird little plug-in for anybody that is looking to go online. Don't worry about a website.
It makes a lot of sense because so many people are doing things with tablets and phones.
Yeah.
That, you don't have the landscape to work with, to develop. You develop a whole bunch on your website. Even then, you still have to make a mobile version because that's probably what they're really going to look at. Right.
Yeah, and they can what content binge is like. Say you want to say I'm offering pashminas or something. You're you're going to come on my Instagram page and you're going to get to see so much more like of what the person's actually doing. And what people are more interested in is less polished, more raw, more real people. So they want to go to where you're showing up all the time, and they want to get a flavor of who you are. And a website, if you have one, can be a great marketing tool, but you really have to be great at copywriting. People spend about 2 seconds on a website. You have 2 seconds to get their attention. Whereas if you have them right in your social media stream, you have more opportunity to actually, you know, give them a taste of who you are and build some trust. So yeah.
Right. So this is Tamsy's. Well, people can see what it is. They can read URLs. Lots of stuff on there on your Instagram.
I'm going to follow you right now.
Thank you. I'll follow you all back. I have 2. So there's the Tamerlee Prone and there's Sensual Diamond.
Oh yes, that's an important one to show. The link tree. All your links with the link tree. I'll get that.
No, it's okay, Ben. What is that?
There you go. Yes, someone was asking before about do you, someone says when somebody asked is she a therapist, and so
I mean, from a mystical, spiritual, alternative, obsessing, you know, perspective, I guide a lot of people, but I'm not a trained, licensed therapist.
Yeah, get that disclaimer out there. I think it's quality advice disguised as NF stuff.
It is quality advice. I will not lie. I have a lot of psychologists, psychotherapists, and even, you know, very high-profile people that come to me.
What I mean by that is it gives you a venue where you can help people.
I'm not doing that right now. I'm really focused on conscious business.
Well, via this, I think you are. Because
I am, and actually what makes like my business container much different than everybody else is that a lot of people think that they need strategy to excel online. What they really need is a lot of hand-holding, a lot of decluttering, a lot of relationship building, and understanding dynamics of health versus not in all areas of their life. And most people, when they're teaching people about business, it's very linear. And what I'm teaching people is how to overcome like the self-doubt hurdles and how to look at the areas in their life where they're feeling really swamped and help work on that. And that could be like cleaning your room. That could be cleaning up your relationship. That could be cleaning up parenting. It's all those things. So I now use that funnel, an element of what I've learned in life, to help support people in a real life way. And then these people do well online because they're confident. It's really about confidence.
So what I see, a theme of Tamara's videos is like, she's like really lays out the issue and builds a connection with the audience. And then you get the practical advice, the message from the video.
And do you get many teachers in your audience? Or do you get primarily individuals?
My clients really span all over, but I definitely have teachers as well. Yeah, for sure. Because a lot of people have ideas or things that light them up in their heart and their soul, and you're married to maybe like one way of looking at that in your life for income, but then it turns out that there's like this whole new world online where you can kind of actually do anything you want, and there is a market for it if you know how to speak, you know, if you know how to engage and to connect. And what I really teach people is that it's not all these things that you think. You don't need a website. You don't need to be an influencer, super popular. You don't even need to know what you're doing before you come into my container. You just need to know that there is a passion or something calling in your heart that feels like it hasn't been seen, or it's missing, or that you're needing to connect with people. And so yeah, I attract people from all walks of life. I have clients in the UK, in Australia, in Sweden, in all over the US.
Oh, that's cool.
And this is all new. This is all everything that I've blossomed my mystical, holistic, alternative, and entrepreneurial kind of combo into over the last 6 months. I launched in the height of the pandemic when my brick and mortar businesses were no longer valid, and everything that I knew had disappeared. And as a single mom with 2 kids, I needed to kind of go big or go home. And so I allowed myself the authentic bloom, is what I call it. I'm fully aligned with still being in my strange weirdness, but with a business twist. And
yeah. And I think for you, in the time that I've known you, it's like you got to that point where it's like you were so much helping people gratis. And it was like, and you were telling other people in one of your videos that there has to be this thing of, it is right to charge people because it helps to prioritize those people that want the most help when you've got so many people coming towards you.
Well, the thing is, the empathetic type of individual, the healer, the alternative, the holistic, the creative, we've been taught the starving artist cliche of you must bleed and you must be in pain to be authentic, and you must be poor to be a true healer, and you must be hidden to be a true mystic. And these are the things that really suffocate the masses, because that cloud is so overwhelming. And it's something that most of us struggle from. And that's kind of where I teach from as well, and that's the biggest part, and that's the beginning, which is decluttering these mindsets that have been really projected. Because if you really truly want to help people, if you feel abundant and you feel worthy of your own time and energy, and you feel worthy of investing in yourself, and you feel worthy of a clean space, and you feel worthy of a healthy relationship, and you feel worthy of investing in mentorship, well, then you're going to be vibrating at a space where you're going to give permission and extension to a larger group of people to do that also. And that's how I charge premium prices. I'm not cheap by any means. I am an investment, and there's a return on that investment in all of my clients. And if you really want to shift your life, then I'm your person. If you kind of just tiny bit want to, I'm not your person. But I do have free resources for people. I have the group. I do workshops. I connect in community environments. I share a lot on my own personal Facebook page about love, relationships, mystical things, to give people still my heart and my energy. But at the end of the day, if I want to be a mom and a business owner and value the commitments that I've already made, I give myself permission now to say no to the thousands of messages that I spent years working with people one-on-one with. That was a value. And I'm glad I did that. But I am also a lot better now that I don't feel exhausted from it, and I'm not resenting people from wanting to help.
And I think that's a big lesson for INFJs to learn, INFJ resemblers, because TE, and business logic is a big part of TE. They feel like a disdain for it. That it's almost because a lot of them are natural counselors, they don't wish to charge people. It's almost like, because TE and those TE things, it seems almost, whereas for you, it's almost, do you think that before, when you, because I remember I don't, you sort of alluded to this, like that when you were helping people gratis and you were counseling like 20 people at a time, and now do you think that the people, because they're paying, they're more likely to follow your advice?
Whenever you give something free to people, 99% of the people don't value it. And what they become is that what happens, and I don't hate to say this, I am so radically different than when we first started doing these things. I'm like total polar other end of the scale now. What it is that I like to liken it to somebody that's drowning. If you try and help somebody that's drowning, they will drown you. And so all of us INFJs are out there getting drowned, hating on people, sending out crap energy for zero reason from people that just need help. And we are sending out that blinking light. And we need validation, and we're stuck in conditioning, and we think that makes us feel better, when really what we just need is to be permission to be selfish. Because selfish is actually much more selfless. You don't keep people in your lives that don't really align with you. You don't keep them from meeting people that are more aligned with them. You don't keep people in a victim mentality and status. It's actually far more selfish to be codependent and people pleasing. And I needed to be slapped in the face with that, and I was. And my whole life is different now, because now I don't waste people's time. I don't lead them on into thinking I'm going to be like their best friend for years, and then maybe like destroy their mental health because I just fall off the earth because I'm exhausted and I don't want to do it. I tell people, I don't have time. I don't want to do this. I did that for years. This is what's free. This is what you pay for, because I go deep with the people that I'm with. You're in my heart. I call it my womb. You're literally my sacral energy. And that's a huge commitment. If I'm letting you into my dreams, into my visions, into my intuition, into my heartbeat, into my cells, we must be soulmate kind of material to work together. And like, you have to want to, and I have to want to. I won't ever jeopardize something for $1 for money. If we don't fully align, I'm not doing that. But I also know, I know a ton of people that are, and I can direct people to a lot of resources. And I do, because I didn't always have thousands of dollars for mentorship. I didn't always have that. And I needed the free resources and things that I had access to as well. But you know, now I teach people, be a student of observation until you can be an invested one monetarily. Because if you keep people in your field and you like my magnetism, but you're not ready to invest, you're going to learn a lot more from me than me dripping you with little things and little messages for you, than actually paying attention to the way that I speak, hold myself, and engage with other individuals. And it's been a powerful transformation for me, and that's what I help others do. It's bravely uncomfortable because you're going to actually have to be responsible to how you are and who you are showing up in the world, and when you make mistakes and when you exceed, you know, what you even thought you could do. Whereas when I was bleeding myself dry, the value in that was the unhealthy too. You know, I'll die trying. When I die, people will say she gave up everything. Yeah, I did, including the ability to be an honest mirror for anybody in my life. And I'm sorry that I did that for the first 36 years, right?
You know, there's so much research that supports what you're saying. It's not even funny. Everything from just, you know, basic psychology to business. When someone is willing to put their skin in the game, they will stick with it. And the more money that you invest, now, you know, you know, the more money you invest, the more that you're gonna try to at least follow the advice and be committed and get through it. If not, because I think, you know, think about it, it's like offering you know, a bit of your time. That's kind of like having a sample at the grocery store. This is cool. That's nice.
Yeah.
When they're ready for the meal, they walk right past, you know, they walk right past to either get all the ingredients or to buy the product. And they pay for it. And they enjoy it. You know, I mean, it's but yeah, that's it's research based. I think. Oh wow. I don't blame you. I don't blame you in the least.
This might sound like a digression, but I think this is a big part in, because there is this romance style like you've got here from Faye the ENFJ, right? There is this thing with, and I think part of it is with INFJs. It's an interesting thing because in Kersey they're directive. And I can see how INFJs are directive, but in certain spheres of their life, it's almost like there's this, from my point of view, I'm biased though, because I don't like extroverted sensing. There's almost like a pathological fascination with extroverted sensing and assertiveness and trying to fix people, and an attraction towards people that you think you can fix. It's like the bad boy, the rough diamond, and getting into those types of relationships. There is something there, especially with the INFJ females.
So I did that. And I what I can tell you is the transformation in me is so big from when we first met that I can't even identify with who I was before. And it was who I was for so long. But it's so impossible for me to even imagine being her anymore. It's just so much clearer, honest, more authentic, you know, to just actually say no, to just actually say, I don't like doing that. I'm burnt out by that. I'm exhausted by that. I don't feel compensated. I feel like you're dumping on me. I feel like you're sinking and drowning me all the time. Stop projecting onto me that I am your savior. I don't know the answers to all these things. What I am incredibly connected to, though, in any moment, and I would like to still say, I still do work 1 day a week at a herbal apothecary where I see 40 to a couple hundred people and give free advice and guidance. from everything from cancer to the common colds to whatever other, sadness and trepidation comes out of people's mouths in those hours. And I do make myself available to that, although I really resent it if I have to do it more than one day a week. I feel taken advantage of, and I get really angry, agitated. I don't like it. Whereas if I'm only doing it one day a week, I feel really connected. I see people as salt of the earth. I value the simpleness and the humility and the sincerity of loss that these people are feeling, and the honor of being able to be a moment in their life that might guide them somewhere. But what I've realized is that the only real superpower that I have is that I feel like a natural spark to people's greatness. So when they're in my proximity, people feel seen. I guess that's the 4. They feel seen and they feel valued. And I see that spark in them. And my only and all advice always is that you do actually deserve to take up space as you are. And please, just like the homework is always, what did your dad and mom and society teach you? And what do you actually resonate with? And what it feels like it's not really your own? And are you brave enough to go there? Because if you are, you're going to struggle now in all the ways that you need to go there. If you're not willing, you're going to struggle in all the ways that are making you feel suppressed by not being allowed to be there. And in life, you have those 2 choices: struggle this kind of hard or struggle the other type of hard. But the other type of hard gives you the validation of feeling beautiful, aligned, and seeing your own vibrancy affect other people in beautiful ways. The other kind of struggle keeps you in being validated in ways that you've been conditioned to be validated, that are only small sparks of feeling good, but then they deplete really quickly and you have to start over because it's more of an ego validation. So this is where I really try and work with people, and that doesn't matter if it's business or in the shop. So I still allocate a responsible duty to my community through the shop. It's nothing to do with money. I don't even care that I have all the holistic knowledge anymore. It's really these people have seen me for 15 years, and I feel a duty to them. That's the INFJ part.
Yeah, I think with you, Tamsy, that a lot of life stuff that you've been through, there's been a lot of forces that have been forcing you to develop extroverted thinking, like from your father, like all the being entrepreneurial and all of these events. Like you've had, and you can see how it's hard for the INFJ resembler, that you've had all of these like forces and from your parents and reality, and getting to a point where it's just something that has to be done. Like
it does, but then I have to balance it with the fact that if I feel burnt out, exhausted, and resentful and cranky at people, and I'm having to fake a smile, I don't like that. So yeah. I really, I'm probably a small portion of the population that massages these truths into my life every single day and continues to pivot. As crazy as that makes me look to people, I don't care. I think the purpose of life is relationships. And if I can't be an honest mirror, and I'm going to send out, because to me, thoughts I capture like a dream weaver. I can't sleep at night if you're thinking about me because I feel you, and while things and events are happening around the world, I'm sensitive to that harmony in my body. And so I have to be so honest and try and learn more and more what honesty even means to myself, so that I can A, function, and B, think like, well, how can I be a true leader in that sense while giving people permission to be themselves? And so, yes, it needs to be done. But when that part of my brain is shouting, I have to then invite, it does have to be done, but it has to be done in an honest way. And yeah. I realized I've robbed a lot of people of opportunities to be in particular roles because people valued so much how well I did a thing. But I've had super training, I've had mindset training since I was 8. So that's very powerful, and it gets so validated that I could get stuck there.
I've noticed with a lot of accomplished NFs and like having to use this TE, they're using it in professions which are helping people. So with yourself, you're helping. So it's almost like you're using the TE, but you're helping people. So it's like that satisfies the idealist part of you. It's not like you're doing like something that's grindingly. It's like TE for good. TE for good. Like this process which is like so objective and like so harsh and bottom line, but it's TE for good. Or Carol Linden running her typology business about communication. Carol effectivewithpeople.com. Effectivewithpeople.com. So again, it's like those NFs out there, those idealists that have created a typology business or business helping people, then it satisfies their idealist needs, practical needs for a living.
And that's a big part because it kind of gives me permission to be artsy and weird and mystical and sensual and also businessy all at once. Like it's a perfect kind of container for an INFJ, actually. And then my next big stretch of personality that I would like to allow myself is in the next 5 years to really show up in a very big way with kind of like videography and artistry and dance and singing, and showcase that as another way of being of permission without anything attached to it, to also show the value that in fully embodying expression that doesn't have a narrative necessarily to direct can also be just as influential in saving people's souls. Because the things that I look to that give me the most relief from hardships of life right now are actual channels of people, you know, being in the mountains or being in the woods or dancing. That relaxes me, that brings me back down to earth, that gives me the energy to show up and do what I do. And there is that wish and desire in the back of my mind that I'm allowed to just sit on that rock and meditate, allowed to just swim and dance and film and show the lens of what really brings me stillness to others, and that also be valid. So I hope to, you know, in another 5 years come online here and have that aspect be like really real as well. And that's a really uncomfortable feeling inside of me right now because my nervous system has and thoughts yell at me that I'll be letting people down if I stop the counseling kind of canvas ever.
So part of you is like, do a lot of these things sort of resonate with you as sort of like this like welder's obligation thing? Like, because this is like what Dario's sort of like description of extroverted feeling, like sort of the boxes that you tick, that someone would tick if the process is high in them.
It's still high enough. I don't know what kind of high it still is, but like, see, we're easily discern other people's needs, preferences, and values. Yeah, previous businesses, I'd be like using my spidey sense to see who needs a glass of water, who needs an extra pillow, who's struggling to comprehend what I'm teaching, blah, blah, blah. So the whole class is me getting exhausted by perceiving all these things people might need, while still delivering something that, you know, is transformational. Feel inclined to be responsible and take care of others' feelings. I've had that most of my life. I really feel like I've relinquished that in a huge part. I'm actually not responsible. I realize, like, I can't be responsible to take care of other people's feelings all the time. Like, you can't live life doing that. You can't be present. And, you know, it ends up being like that manipulative too, maybe the manipulative in not the greatest way, where I have been a master manipulator. I'm not going to lie. And I didn't look at it as a bad thing. I just felt like I was coordinating everything, not manipulating it. You know, I was creating this excellent, perfectly orchestrated thing when really people left and then their lives didn't match up to the content I was delivering because I manipulated that for everybody to feel that glorious mood and moment. You know, so now I step back and it's a great weight of relief that I don't have to take care of the internet. I don't have to answer.
I like that. I like that phrase. I don't have to take care of the internet.
You know, like, sorry, I don't know how you found me, but I'm really just giving myself permission to take care of those that want to work on business right now.
Yeah, and so some of these, because Sabrina's got to go soon, so a lot of these things, like this one was for me, like merge and feel intimate oneness with other people. Because then these are my selections. So this is how I relate to extroverted feeling. You're probably really good at these, like especially this one, easily communicate personally to all members of the group. Or you're trying.
I want that full intimacy in anything that I do, and that's why I have been online now for 3 hours instead of 1, so it feels intimate, right?
Yeah, and there's this one, interestingly enough, there's this part of you theoretically. Now Dario would think that, now it's a big thing in Dario where it's aspirational. It's like, are these things, Tamara, that you would, to put it bluntly, do you find these things hot? Because sociologists would say that INFJ finds this particular thing hot, attractive, these particular faculties.
Yeah, like, and yes. I mean, yes, it's all true, but I'm just like aware too. I'm like, Sabrina's here, and I've been talking so much, and I'm like, talking about this, and it's making me, and you're so engaging and so sweet, and so like you're still smiling and still glowing, and you're still available, and you haven't dropped off just because I'm talking so much. So like,
oh no, because you're in. It's interesting. I think that what you're doing, especially right now in this pandemic, is something that is needed. You know what I mean? And I'm just sitting up here thinking, you know, I'm trying to resist saying you need to do a TED Talk, but apparently I just let that slip.
I joke around on my Facebook all the time, and I say thanks for coming to my TED Talk, because I'm a rambler. But it's like the whole thing for me is looking to be like, what's the key to the universe? What are we doing here? What are we trying to figure out, folks? Well, okay, and that's why I'm here, right? And that's probably why you're both here, is like, okay, we value relationship, we value understanding people, we value the harmony and figuring out small little tweaks, you know, and that's not very mystical, that's very practical. You know, what can we pull together from all of our lenses, and we get, you know, collectively here in this group, that there's a huge superpower in understanding other people. And it's also selfish, because I get to get seen and heard, and I can manipulate situations and personality types and show up in ways that I get what I want out of the situation. And I do that now. I know who I'm getting into a group with. Yes, all this is hot for me. I know why I'm here. I know why you're all here. I'm aware of all the little cues. And I also, in the past, where I was annoying people, might have dropped off completely and switched left. But now I understand there's a greater narrative, and I trust the universe. Sometimes we're pulled into a spotlight to take other people, you know, that might not be so interested, and let them fall off. Let them fall off. I don't care anymore. If you're not interested in hearing, don't listen. You know, nobody's forcing you or tying you to be in this moment. You're here because you want to, because there's magnetism, there's engagement, there's something that's fueling you. And I allow those moments now. And where in the past, if I was forcing myself intellectually to continue on and I didn't have anything, I don't do that anymore, because that's robbing the spark from where it's supposed to be. And so, you know, I feel really grateful for this, you know, moment to have just kind of flourished spontaneously, as so always happens under Ben's lead.
So I'm happy to wind up in case you two wish to like chat for a few minutes before Sabrina leaves. So is it okay if I stop broadcast now, or are there any closing? Okay, so I'm going to end the broadcast now, folks. You've had more than your money's worth, because you haven't spent loads. Right.
I love it.